Punching Up, a Nintendo podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Punching Up, a Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Dustin, and with me, of course, just once again, this excellent lineup of folks here. I'm going to start with the top of my video feed here. Mama Micah, how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well today, Dustin. It's a good day to be here. The weather, not great. So I'm not missing anything by being inside podcasting instead. It's one of those perfect days to just be indoors.
Is it hot or rainy in Virginia? What's going on?
It's kind of chilly. It's very cloudy.
Oh.
It's not going to rain today, but it's supposed to rain this weekend. And it's like the prelude to it. And I'm just like a houseplant. I need the sun. So on any like cloudy day, I just feel terrible.
Yeah.
It's just the worst. So this is a perfect day to just be indoors, read a book, play Switch or something, ignore the outdoors.
My problem is I sometimes also feel that way, but I also just happen to spend my days that are nice, nice days inside as well. And then it'll be 8 or 9 p.m. and I'll step out on the porch and be thinking, damn, I totally wasted any opportunity to go outside today. So
another one.
Yeah, another one. Dagan, I noticed when you were taking a drink out of the Akira mug, and I'm wearing the Akira shirt. What kind of synergy is that?
Unbelievable. I mean, these is great minds. Great minds.
Of course. How are you today?
I started the morning thinking, how are you guys with this? Of what mind are you? You go to a concert, right? Are you guys all of the same mind that you don't wear that band's t-shirt to that concert because that's a dork move? Because what I'm realizing is I wore a Nintendo shirt for our first show last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, our show number 1, Punching Up number 1. And I was thinking, is that the same thing? If I wear a Nintendo t-shirt on a Nintendo podcast, am I the dork with the Coldplay shirt at the Coldplay concert?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Colin's always wearing PlayStation shirts. He's always wearing like Gorilla Games, Naughty Dog shirts.
But he's a nerd.
So yeah, he's a total dweeb in that regard.
I'm not sure. I got to think about it because it's it's almost like you go to South by Southwest or Woodstock, a big musical event, right? And you wear one of the 40 bands t-shirts. Not as bad, right? And that's kind of a Nintendo thing. Nintendo is a broad thing. It's not Led Zeppelin. It's not, Taylor Swift. Mm-hmm. So if you wear a Zelda shirt on a Nintendo podcast, not as egregious. I don't know. This is how my mind. This is what I wake up thinking. The level of anxiety, things I don't need to be stressing about. I'm thinking about this is very Dagan.
I gotta say, I think you're in the clear, Dagan, because I feel like the podcast thing is totally different than a concert. I will say the one exception, and Dagan, maybe you know about this since I know you love this band as well, is you got to wear the Iron Maiden shirt to the Iron Maiden concert. It's a given. That's their thing. The guys in the band wear Iron Maiden shirts to their own concerts, which you would think would be lame, but I don't know. They pull it off. That's what they've always done.
That's
for
their
decades.
thing.
Yeah.
And them alone, as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Right?
I don't know. Micah, do you have any thoughts on this? I don't know if you're much of a concert goer. But I don't know. Does this relate to podcasting too?
I've literally never been to a concert in my life. So
wow.
I would be the person to wear the band shirt there because I'd be just so excited, and it'd be like, oh, here's a chance to get it signed or whatever. Or be the person who bought a shirt and immediately put it on. That would probably be me. But I've never been to one. So I'd probably just be so overwhelmed with excitement. But I'm constantly wearing Nintendo shirts. That's the majority of my like gaming shirt collection. Right. Today's shirt, you can't see it. Today's shirt is like a Deadpool arcade shirt. So I'm always wearing gaming related clothing. But I like Colin. I'm just a big nerd. So I don't try to hide it.
Sure. There's no reason to hide here on Last Stand Media. We're very loud and proud. Gene, how are you today? Looking just absolutely stunning this morning. The New York hat, the Nintendo New York hat, I hope you wear it every episode.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
when I see it, I'm like, damn, that hat is so cool.
It's a beautiful hat. So
It's a good
yeah,
hat.
so Dagan's out there worrying about wearing too much Nintendo gear, and here I am just having it on my crown. You know,
The Nintendo crown. Yeah,
That's a good one though. That's a cool. I feel like that's a subtle one. That's
it's
a
very
nice
subtle.
one.
You can't tell if you don't understand it, and most people don't. Then you won't be able to tell that it just says Nintendo. It just says New York and something Asian on it. So,
Yeah,
it's like getting a tattoo of like a character that that just means strength or something. Or resilience. But it just says Nintendo.
I got called out at the dentist office a few years ago because I wore my Last Guardian shirt to the dentist, and it has Japanese on it. And the dental hygienist said, "What does that say on it?" And I realized I have no fucking idea what it says. And I said, "I think it says The Last Guardian because that's the name of the game." And she, just in a blank face, said, "Oh."
She's like,
and then moved on.
Like,
this
fake fan. Okay.
fake fan.
Yeah.
I used the Google Translate thing, and it did say Last Guardian, so I was right about that.
All right.
But anyway, welcome to Punching Up. First of all, I want to thank everybody who listened to the first episode and gave us so much support, overwhelming support, shooting us up the charts on the leisure charts on Apple podcasts. That was so great to see. We appreciate it so much. Honestly, it was way more than I ever expected, just because, on Last Stand, we're primarily a PlayStation, Xbox, more the hardcore gaming, whatever you want to say, the more that kind of line of it. And so to have so much support for this Nintendo show, I saw people even commenting saying that they don't care about Nintendo, but they're going to listen to this show every other week because they just had such a good time with it. And that's exactly the type of thing I'd love to hear. Just that, a show should be entertaining beyond its informational value. And that's exactly what we're striving for. So thank you so much, everybody. And we're happy to be back again with another episode. And just a few shout outs real quick, of course, to our Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia, where you can get the early access to the show 3 days early. Normally it comes out for patrons on Tuesday, everybody else on Friday. That's going to be the schedule moving forward. Everybody got episode 1 at the same time. But if you want that early access, you're going to have to be part of the Patreon at the $5 level. We appreciate it. There's so much value there. You get early access to Sacred Symbols, Defining Duke, episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus, Defining Duke Ultimate, all that good stuff at just the $5 tier. So consider that. And also, if you didn't leave us a rating and review on the various podcast services, if you haven't yet, make sure to do that. Because like I said, it shot us up the charts, even past Duck Dynasty. So, which I was kind of curious about that Duck Dynasty podcast from like a very morbid perspective. Not morbid, but like, what the fuck what do those boys talk about every week?
It's huge.
I didn't even know they were still around anymore.
Yeah.
What's going on with that? Apparently.
Yeah. It's been around for a long time, that podcast too. It's got staying power. That's scary.
Yeah. I remember when Duck Dynasty had that moment of fame where anywhere you got, especially here in Western PA, let me tell you, Duck Dynasty was the biggest thing. I've never seen anything about it, but enough about the Duck boys.
I only have one run-in with the Duck Dynasty boys. This is the main dude. And of course, it was when I visited Fox News, and I was in the Fox News newsroom. And then I just happened to see the Duck Dynasty dude like walk around. I was like, of course he's here. Of course.
Of course he's there.
Yeah. It's like Disneyland and not expecting to see Donald Duck around,
That's awesome. So let's get into, I have a couple opening questions. And most of these pertain to the meta about the show itself, but some of them were just too good. I couldn't resist answering them. And this first one comes from Chaos. Chaos asks, hello, Punching Up crew. I was excited to listen to the new Nintendo podcast, but a bit aghast to hear so much cursing in the first episode. I was hoping that the Nintendo theme would make it a more family-friendly show. Should we expect the same cursing policy as the other shows, or any attempt at making it more family-friendly overall? Wishing you guys the best regardless. Chaos. Now, Chaos, you were pretty polite, pretty nice in this ask. I have to make fun of you a little bit, just a little bit. I mean, this is a Last Stand show, and I was wondering if we could enact a cursing policy, and not a limit on how many, but a minimum that we need to get out per show. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I was very specific to ask Colin this going in. And mind you, asking him knowing full well what the answer would be. And he was unapologetically, immediately, no way, dude. Last Stand Media has its flavor. It's the same for all shows. No one's going to be muzzled. No one's going to, everybody's going to be able to say what they want. But I have to say, Chaos is being very polite and not singling me out, because I think that was largely me. And I have to say, I think cursing is part of my diction. It's just part of my dialect. It's how I talk. But I don't like it. I'm not proud of it. It's just how I grew up. And that's what not that my, anybody was behaving badly, but I was around that. And it was a very sort of genial, regular way that people associated with each other. Cursing was just part of the parlance. And I have to say, I really don't like doing it in any of the podcasts that I'm in. But I kind of feel like maybe we shouldn't. This is a nice group of people, because I don't feel like this is a curse heavy group anyway. If we were doing it with Colin, who, he's like me, he speaks like I speak. But I think this group, I don't think it even has to be an artificial thing where we're kind of silencing ourselves or stifling ourselves. I think we probably could just get along with talking regular and not have to worry about cursing. So I am going to be a little careful of that for myself, only because I have a guilty conscience about it.
Yeah. You got to follow your heart on these things. Yeah. And so if that's the way you feel, Dagan, I support you. But I don't know. Try. I think that I think you're right that this crew here, I don't see us saying, fuck somebody in anger very often on this show. I think it's going to be more positive way of swearing. But yeah, I did notice that I need to talk to our ad people, because I think that our show is set as clean right now on Apple Podcasts. So we got to make sure we put that.
Well, Dust, you know what tag. I feel like? Cursing with Nintendo is like opening up the eShop and seeing Grand Theft Audio Trilogy on there next to Smash Brothers. There's something not right about it, but that sort of contradiction does exist in the Nintendo ecosystem. So I feel like cursing on the podcast is kind of apropos to the culture of Nintendo being squeaky clean, but then having Vice City available for download on the eShop.
Yeah, Bayonetta is a Nintendo property, and she curses all the time.
There you go. Yes.
Naked.
No one ever.
She curses while naked.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great call. Well said, Gene.
So, okay, this is actually a perfect segue. I'm going to go a little out of order in my doc here, but Just James writes in and says, I'm a 25-year plus disaffected Nintendo fan, but I do enjoy listening to you all discuss the current state. And Dustin is doing a great job as main host so far. Thank you, James.
Very good.
My question is, if you can maintain the LSM standards of no nonsense takes when it comes to Nintendo, will you hold Nintendo's feet to the fire for forcing their fans to live with grossly obsolete, even at launch hardware? Can you turn your harsher, wiser, adult level critical mind towards your surviving childhood love? Best of luck. Now, James, the way that I felt about this is that even in episode 1, I think it was episode 1, I talked about Nintendo's horrible practice of forcing you to buy their cloud backup system and not letting you back up to your own SD card, which is absolutely ridiculous. And here's the thing. I feel like just give it time, because Nintendo, for me, and if anyone who's listened to Sacred Symbols, I regularly talk about how Nintendo just bends you over any possible chance they can, and just to screw with you. They want your money, and they are so shameless about it. So I don't know. Gene, do you feel... I feel like we're not going to have any issue being fair. We're all professionals, and sure, here's the thing also is that James mentioned is that he talks about obsolete hardware at launch. I don't know. Is there any game with as good as physics in it on the PS5 that's currently in Tears of the Kingdom? I don't think so. That's not the type of problem to complain about.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
think
You're right.
it's not really an issue, but Nintendo definitely wants your money. When I was at the VIP launch for Tears of the Kingdom at the Rockefeller Center in New York City, um, keep in mind these are all VIP. We are VIP, and the perk that we got as VIP was we got to spend our money earlier than the rest of the people. They didn't give us any discounts in the
Classic.
store. They didn't tell us, hey, here's the stuff exclusively for you. They just open the store and says, here, you can shop now. Like with no one else in here. And then so I ended up spending like $300. I got no I didn't I
You got the
didn't feel like a
privilege.
VIP.
No
You know?
vouchers, no nothing.
No vouchers, no nothing, you know. Even Eiji Aonuma, the Zelda series producer, used his own credit card. So that's the company that we're dealing with. They
It's
definitely want our
hilarious,
money as much as possible.
Hilarious. The Nintendo hardware thing is going to be part of the ongoing conversation. It's inevitable in this space, but
Sure.
Give Nintendo credit for staying relevant with franchise and with software and just brilliant creative direction and stubbornly sticking to their guns. And you know that song, My Way? I Did It My Way? That's Nintendo's whole credo. And I think that's fascinating. And I think part of the frustration over hardware is entertaining, and we all feel it a little bit. We all feel it in varying increments, right? But we all feel it a little bit, but I don't think it's going to stop because they're so successful doing it the way they've been doing it for so long. Maybe eventually they'll feel like they need to stay in the same space and the same conversation as a Microsoft and a Sony by doing it with hardware. But so far they're contending, doing it in their own, with their own philosophy, embodying their own sort of mantra. And I think I think there's something fun about that.
Yeah, just the absolute dedication to doing shit that annoys your customers and then just getting away with it because they know they can.
It's like their image now.
It's amazing. I mean, not in a good, it's like amazing in a purely, it is, I don't know, it's not a positive or a negative amazing. It is sheer shock that sometimes I wonder why I'm even a Nintendo fan with the way they treat us sometimes.
Nobody could get away with it. Mike, I mean, what do you think? I mean, no other corporation could get away with the things that they do and the way that they carry themselves as a corporate entity. And again, that sort of warm and fuzzy, but prickly like a porcupine at the same time dynamic. It's utterly fascinating. It's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, because I really want to get to the bottom of this, but it's bottomless. What do you think, Mike?
No, absolutely. I'll always be very critical of Nintendo, especially when it comes to like artificial scarcity. When you have the amiibo and collector's editions, I mean, those things are usually limited, but Nintendo will say, we have 10 of these, try and get one. Like they really do just say, we'll leave all this money on the table. You want a Joker amiibo? We made 10. And, try your best to get one. Maybe you can get one at a fan event. Maybe you can come to the Nintendo store in New York. We'll have 3 of them there. Like they really just leave so much revenue on the table because they want things to be rare. And that'll always be my biggest criticism of them is, their merchandise. I collect the like World of Nintendo figures. There are some of them that are so hard to get. And it's like, these are things you should just buy at Target, Walmart. Even there, They're scarce. It's crazy to me. Their unwillingness to just make more of an item, especially the ones that are less collectible, the ones that are literally just children's toys. And even those are like, hey, I go to Target, there's one Yoshi plush, one. And it's like clearly a brand new open box of them. And it's like, we sent you one. Someone will get it. And between that and games like just never going down in price, like this game's been out for 5 years, we'll knock $5 off of it.
Well, yeah, for a few weeks, once a year.
Yeah.
It's just that little sale period.
Exactly. And no one else could get away with that. I completely agree. I don't think we'll have any issue being fair and level-headed, especially because we're a group that plays, everything. We're a group that plays PlayStation, Nintendo. Maybe we dabble in Xbox here and there. But we're not a group that's exclusive to Nintendo. So I don't think we'll have any problems being fair and, level-headed with our judgments here.
Yeah, absolutely. But Mike, I want to stay with you for this next one because I know you are supportive of the silly nicknames that I often have, whether it's calling Chipotle chippers or an underrated one is the Mac Weldons that Colin and I wear, being the Mackie Schmackies. Another great
I love
nickname.
That.
Gene, this is what you signed up for. I know I see the disgust, but
I'm learning new things about you. Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of new nicknames, but we need some nicknames here. And so Zip Davis writes in and says, "Hello, Punching Up crew. I was thinking of some nickname ideas for the Punching Up audience." And he has some suggestions. Stinkers. And some explanations. A bit of an inside joke, as Dustin always calls the Switch Stinky Switch. Okay, that's one.
Okay.
Punchers. The violent choice, but not recommended. Nintendorks. The classic. And also the name of Lockmort's amazing edit that he just did of us.
Oh, that's right.
Cool Zips. And he says, sorry, had to try. Yeah, Cool Zips is totally out, and I'm ashamed I even read it out loud. All jokes aside, congratulations on the new show, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Also, quote, it's okay, I'm with Miyamoto. Would make an amazing shirt. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Now, I saw some other suggestions and stuff that people put out in the Discord. One of them was, it's called Punching Up. We couldn't name the show Brickfisters. So, maybe that's not quite a good one either. We tried. We thought maybe there's going to be some confusion there with the Brickfisters. So, Micah, do any of these names ring out for you?
Yeah, these are pretty good because I did see some horrible ones in some of the other Patreon comments, ones that I don't even want to say.
Yeah.
I think Stinkers might be my favorite, but it's partly because I always call my dogs that. We're constantly calling them, the young stinks, my stink son, my stink daughter. Like that's just how we always refer to them. So that's one of my favorite words. I like that a lot. And also Colin, I've learned this is kind of a New York thing that he'll always be like, that stinks, or like, oh, he stinks if we're watching sports or something. So yeah. I very much embrace that. That would be my choice. If people are going to be writing into us with a nickname, I wouldn't mind being, Dustin and the Stinkers, perhaps.
Whoa, that's like just a horrible band name, Dustin and the Stinkers.
I like it.
That's his whole dating life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of partial to the Nintendorks. I don't know. I feel like Locke might have set a precedent pretty early on with that one, but I don't know. Dagan or Gene, do you have any thoughts here? Or the other question too, maybe it just happens naturally. Sometimes you just gotta see what the write-ins decide, which they can sometimes take it too far with, the Slitterhead situation on Sacred Symbols. But that's a story for another day. So any thoughts about this, Dagan?
I think Stinkers is nice. I think that's kind of fun. I think invoking, if I'm sucking up to Miyamoto and I'm going to continue my tradition of trying to get Shigeru's attention, Miyamoto's something. We could be Miyamoto's Marauders, Miyamoto's Minxes. Something sexy, keep it a little sexy, show a little strap, type of thing.
Oh,
all right.
Okay. Who knows?
Gene, are you feeling anything with these names?
Stinkers is cute.
It's cute.
Thinking like off the top of my head, something like Weebo, which is evocative of the Wii, the Amiibo, and Weeaboos. So,
wow.
Oh wait, you might have some
triple.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
If we were all men, then we can just be called the Wee Boys. But we're breaking the mold here over at Punching.
The Wee Boys.
The Wee.
Wait a second.
So
all right,
that'll be my role now here. The Dustin role. Like, oh, hey.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
All right. Well, so we'll let the audience marinate on some of these names and see what you guys think about it. Maybe if you have some new ones, let us know. We'll just see what happens with this one. But without further ado, I wanted to get into Dagan's opening segment, and with a small note in that we had a lot of people tell us that Question Block is unfortunately not a very original name for a segment on a Nintendo podcast, because I believe that IGN used Question Block as well.
Oh, I didn't see this feedback. Really?
Oh, I forgot.
No.
I meant to tell you that.
Oh no!
So we'll have to
retired it already.
Yeah, well, if it ever returns, we'll figure out some other kind of name. Yeah. But the point, I think people understood. We're not trying to steal from anybody.
No.
It's just I feel like it's a logical conclusion. In Nintendo podcast, what do you have a trivia segment named? Question block, you know?
Yeah.
So shout out IGN for that one, for having it first. But Dagan, you have a new segment prepared for us. Take it away.
Absolutely. Okay, let's do this. So, you guys, we're in this Nintendo ecosystem. We finally got something big from the big N. A lot of us are enjoying Tears of the Kingdom. Still brand new, still just scratching the surface. So much to look forward to just with this one game alone, right? This is like the centipede of games, like legs for days. We're going to be talking about this game for a long time. We have a lot to soak in and savor. But as gamers, specifically Nintendorks, we're always looking ahead, right? What's over the horizon? We can never just be satisfied. We can never just be in the moment. I'm guilty of that. What's next? Metroid Prime 4. When is this thing going to get out of development hell? What's next for the hardware? Switch 2 or whatever it is. What's going on? Now, in that spirit, I know we're all thinking about it. What's next for mainline Mario? What's next? We want the next Mario game. We don't want Mario Kart Deluxe DLC. We want a new Mario game. We want to celebrate a new thing, like when I think about when like Mario Galaxy came out, how exciting that was. So here's what I'm going to throw to you guys. Here's what I'm going to task you three with today. Pitch me a new Mario game. What do you want to see? What do you think's likely? Now, you don't have to go crazy. Marinate on it for a second while I finish talking. Maybe just give me the elevator pitch. Maybe you just want to see a new world. Maybe Mario and Bowser join forces against a common enemy. So a return to the Galaxy universe, or whatever. Maybe we go far into the future. Maybe we go into the past. Maybe it's Mario's successor, his progeny. Mario's gone. Now he's passed the baton to a new generation, far into the future. Whatever you want to go do, however you want to take it. New characters, old characters, new gameplay, new format. Whatever you want to do, I'll throw it over to you first, Dust. What do you want for the next Mario game? And in the spirit of now that we can't just be satisfied with something new, we always have to look ahead. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay, so my take, and unfortunately it's not too specific, but this is how I felt about mainline Mario games for the last decade.
Yeah.
I think they're all great and bring something totally new to the table that I love. I think these games are masterpieces. Galaxy and Odyssey, Galaxy 2, amazing. And Mario 64, of course, Sunshine, amazing. But particularly in the more recent era, if you can even call it that, with Galaxy and Odyssey, I feel like they're both missing something that Mario 64 had. For example, in Galaxy, I preferred the way the camera was. You know, in Galaxy is more of a like wider camera shot that doesn't necessarily follow Mario left and right and stuff like that. Whereas, of course, Mario 64 and, well, basically all the other ones do. And then with Odyssey, which I also think is amazing, it's just, I like that we got these really awesome worlds, but there weren't quite enough of them for me. And maybe I'm just a greedy Mario fan, but I was thinking about Mario 64 and all the different levels being, you know, much smaller. But I don't know, I guess I want it all in that I want more worlds. And even if they're smaller, that's okay. Because I think that's where some of the older Mario games really shined, is just their variety. I'm okay with smaller levels. Bigger is not always better. And so I want a Mario game that is traditional in that, like Mario 64 and Sunshine, in the way its camera works and its movement. Not that Galaxy was bad. I love that too. But that's more of my preferred style, with just more worlds, more variety. So that's my pitch.
Nice. I'm not mad at you. Michael, what about you?
I'm thinking I want Mario going back in time. I'm thinking prehistoric.
Oh, that'd
all
be
right.
fun.
I'm thinking dinosaur times. There's a lot you could do with that. There's a lot of different dinosaurs, all different shapes and sizes you can mess around with, put Mario in his precarious situations. The Koopa kids would fit right in, they'd be like in their element surrounded by all these reptiles. I think we
Meaning
take
Bowser's
Mario.
ancestors, right? That could be fun.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that really could just be like such a neat idea of like Bowser has set up a time machine to find like the ultimate like Koopa King from, I don't know my paleontology terms, the
That's
Cretaceous
so cool.
period or whatever. I don't know, wherever dinosaurs lived. And like, I don't know, man, there's a lot you could do with that. I love dinosaurs, first of all. So, and Nintendo would just make them like so fun and cute and flashy. So that would be my thing, would be let's have dino worlds. You could go around the different, periods of time with dinosaurs, change it up like Dustin wants with more worlds, have it look different biomes, that word Colin loves from Minecraft. So yeah, I think we already went to outer space. Now it's time for dino times.
Cute.
Maybe throw in some cavemen. I don't know when they existed, but Nintendo could just throw them in if they want to as well. And I think that would just be a really fun idea. My other idea would be cowboy times, but that's a little less fun.
Red Dead
But also,
Mario.
I don't think Mario. Can we give him a gun? Like like what? All right, you know what? You can give him one of those little pop guns that shoots like little mini plungers type
cute.
thing.
Yeah.
You can give him one of those.
Love
That
it.
He
could
had
be
a
fun.
gun in Mario plus Rabbids, I think, but it was like a laser gun.
You're right.
right.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
blaster.
it's an
I want a
art thing.
revolver, just straight up. that'd be good.
Not bad. Gene, what about you? Where are you going with this?
I really like Micah's idea about Mario throughout time. Like I'm starting to imagine, what if Mario was like Assassin's Creed, and then we have Mario in the Renaissance period, like proper Italy, right?
Mario in Italy.
Yeah,
What a
and then
concept. No one's ever thought of that. Like actual Mario being in Italy,
In the
being
motherland.
Italian. It's just he's,
Yeah.
I get the New York Italian vibe, but I don't know. Now you're got me thinking about Mario and Sopranos as well.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
leaning into the
Gangster.
Italian side.
yeah, or like like Mario Cowboys, or like they have a little bit of that in Mario Odyssey where they dress up Mario as a Mexican. Which was really funny to see, some people be like, "Oh my God, he's culturally appropriating," and then like everyone in Mexico is like, "Yeah, Mario is Mexican,
Yes,
sombrero." Like he's totally one of us, But for me, I think I'd be the serious answer for me is I think have you guys played Bowser's Fury in the Super Mario 3D World?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. I feel like that is kind of was like a stepping stone towards the future of look at how much they sold with Breath of the Wild, right, with the open world formula. I think they're totally gonna go next. We're going to have Super Mario open world, where in Bowser's Fury there were like these little islands, and each little island was their own like little level, but it all runs smoothly. Like as you're entering a new place, the music just changes, which is so fun. So it'll be really fun to just enter a new place in the Mario world, and then like the music changes, and you're just like, oh, this is a completely different vibe in this quote unquote biome. And that's the wonderful thing about Mario is that like there's no gradual change. There's always an abrupt change of mood and tone. They're very sudden shifts in mood and tone in each level. And I think it'll be fascinating to see within a Mario world open world format. And Nintendo's really been leaning into these like mini puzzles. Like you see that with the shrines, in Zelda, and you see that also with Mario Odyssey, with the way they have like 999 moons that you can get, and each one was a little puzzle. So I feel like I see them expanding upon that concept, having all these little puzzles all across the Super Mario open world, whatever you might call it.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Wow, you guys were Johnny on the spot with that. Not bad. There was no preview, by the way, audience. They just found out about this. So creative directors.
Dude, you scared me for a second because I thought, oh no, I'm not going to have an idea immediately. And then it was totally fine. So
Not
I mean, that's the
bad.
beauty about Mario. Like you can take Mario anywhere. Like
Really can.
like, that's why the series is so successful, because the developers are able to have so many different ideas and just implement them in so many different fun ways. Because Mario is so malleable,
It really is.
You
And
could put 'em in anything.
they're always sure to reinvent the franchise with every iteration. I do think one thing, I know it's going to be unique, whatever the next offering is. I suspect they won't build off of Odyssey. It'll be a departure. It won't be like Tears of the Kingdom to Breath of the Wild. It'll be something, I
For
think,
sure.
brand new. And yeah, it's interesting to see where they're going to take it, because if you look at the body of work, it's always completely unique, and it really is something. It's always a fresh take. I marvel at that, to the point where I sit here and think of ideas like you guys were, and I'm like, they kind of did that already. You guys all had very unique visions, which is impressive because they've already covered a lot of ground. So it's interesting to see where will they go and when. Is it going to be? Is that how they're going to bring in the next hardware generation?
It's gotta be how they bring in the next hardware. It's going to be a system seller.
For
and they
sure.
know this. They know this. Look at what happened with Zelda. So
Yeah, absolutely, Gene. Absolutely.
Yeah, the Zelda fans are eating good with multiple Zelda games, mainline Zelda games on the Switch. And not that I'm a fan of both. I lean a little bit towards Mario, so I'm a little disappointed we've had to wait this long. But Dagan, thank you for that segment. And by the way, I saw a lot of justification people that saying Colin was wrong to remove the Dagan segment from Knockback, and they were so pleased to see it back in this show. So I think we can all, mainly pat you on the back, but I'm so glad that we decided to bring that back. So
thank you, my friend. Yeah, he could be wrong sometimes. Not often. It's frustrating. But sometimes he's wrong. Also, he's sleeping right now. How frustrating is that? We're all working hard. The boss is fast asleep.
That's true.
Man, he's got it all figured out, that one.
So let's get into some games that we've been playing this week. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be pretty similar to last week, but I'm going to angle some of the Zelda stuff in a specific way. But Micah, I want you to start off with some updates on Octopath Traveler 2.
Oh.
Yes. So I really decided I have to just hunker down and get through this game because I just kind of felt like I was losing interest in it, but I knew that if I put it down and started something else, I just wouldn't go back to it. I am still struggling a bit with some of the storylines just being boring, but the gameplay has completely hooked me in again. I'm going through these boss battles. They're incredible, and so I've been just really dedicating a lot of time to trying to get through this game. I'm a little concerned because I'm currently at I think 37 hours, and the estimates online say the game takes 60 hours to beat.
Oh, wow.
But I'm already on, it feels like I'm further than that. So I don't know if I'm missing something and there's going to be this huge end game that I have to get through when I think the game's already over type thing, a Persona style. They're like, hey, by the way, here's a whole nother dungeon, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to throw one of those at me, and maybe I'll do what I did in the first Octopath and kind of call it quits because I've had enough. But I do just want to get through everyone's main story. It's much more engaging than it was before. I am also, though, I try not to multitask when I play games, but with this game, it's becoming a necessity. Some of the storylines, I'm just not feeling it. So I put on a barbecue video in the background, just play through it. The boss battles are fantastic. There's other aspects of the game I'm not liking as much. And it's after you pointed out that there's not much character interaction, between your travelers. And it just sticks out more and more as I'm playing it.
Dang it, I ruined it.
Well, it's one of those. I think I could feel it, but I couldn't articulate it. It's like Red Letter Media when they're like, you didn't notice, but your brain did. And it's completely the feeling of yeah, there was something missing, but I couldn't articulate that. And it's completely what it is. They have these little sections, called travel banter, sort of like in the Tales game when you stay at an inn overnight.
Right.
And but it's not like that at all because it's super impersonal and not endearing at all. It's just not the same. It really just isn't the same. And the game's totally missing that meshing of the characters to actually feel like they are a team and not just 8 complete individuals who happen to be together. But I am getting through it. I'm having fun with it. I'm hoping, I can get through this game pretty quickly because I still want to get to Fire Emblem Engage. I bought that immediately at launch and haven't played it yet. So that's my motivation to keep getting through Octopath Traveler 2. And I think I'm getting to the home stretch. It feels like that anyways.
Yeah, it's been so interesting seeing the feedback on this game because I've seen a lot of people say that, well, at least before Zelda, that it was their game of the year, right? That this was the game of the year. And then I hear you and Colin and some other people talk about it. I think I am steering way clear. The exact stuff that you guys haven't liked about it is the stuff that I wouldn't like about it. So, and honestly, right now with so many games coming out and games that are out, it's like, cool. It's I don't know. It's not a good feeling when a game is bad. Well, not bad. Not for me is what I should say. But it's a little bit of a relief to not have that FOMO around it. But shout out to you for powering through. I would have probably just dropped it. I don't know. I'm not that type of person to. Yeah. Well, every once in a while, like Metal Gear Peace Walker right now is a game that I'm still powering through, even though I'm kind of done with it. But well, good, very good. Now, for me, and I'm pretty sure for Dagan and Gene, still playing Tears of the Kingdom, and I didn't want to repeat too much of what we talked about last week. And if there's other stuff, we can obviously go to that as well. But I wanted to ask you guys this question about Tears of the Kingdom, and then we can just talk about general, like new discoveries of the past week and stuff like that. But this comes from Mario Diosdado. Is that right? I'm a Western PA, very uncultured man, but I think I nailed that. He said, "Hello, Last Stand Nintendo team. I've been enjoying my time in Hyrule with over 90 hours played, according to Nintendo, and it feels like I'm not even halfway there to 100%. With games like Diablo 4 and Final Fantasy 16 around the corner, I'm being tempted to use the duplication exploit, which I know will break the game economy, just so I can speed things up. Would you be open to using this exploit for this or any other reason? Thank you for the great content and congrats on the new show." Now, Gene, I saw you tweeted that you confirmed when this glitch was discovered that it worked. So you've been, dabbling in the dark magic that Nintendo would not be pleased with you. So I want to know, was this just a simple experimentation or we got a duper on our hands?
No, this is not flirtation. I've gone full bore. I'm glad that the question brought it up, because if we were going to talk about the way we're approaching the game, I've definitely approached. I'm breaking the hell out of this game. So now I have 60,000 rupees, thanks to all the diamonds that I've duped. I have 5 different master swords for some reason. 4 of them are unbreakable, and one of them is fused, permanently fused, so it has a permanent attack up. And the other one is the regular master sword that you get in the game. And I'm playing this save on. So I own 6 Switches, and I'm playing this on the new Zelda OLED Switch that just came out. And I'm keeping that save offline with save class data cloud offline. No automatic save backup, so that if they update it and patch it out, then all that information might be gone. It's a little scary because when you dupe the master sword, you actually kind of take it out from the beginning of the intro of the game and then turtling it fast forward through time to the modern day where Link is fighting, and like the master sword itself is not even called the master sword. It's called MSG not found. So
this has Missing No vibes, dude. You're gonna ruin the Elite Four at the end of Tears of the Kingdom.
Basically, I mean, I already beat the game, right? And I've already played 500 hours of Breath of the Wild, so I feel like I owe it to myself to kind of to kind of cheat, and because I don't want to farm dragon parts to update my armor. I already upgraded the armor in Breath of the Wild, so I'm just doing the same thing over and over again. So the duplication glitch is really great for someone who's just kind of already doing it, and I don't want to go through the motions. But it is nice to have this is the first time I'm playing a Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom game. I had never played on PC with mods or anything like that, so this is the first time I'm playing it with an unbreakable sword. I gotta tell you, it's actually kind of fun, just running around with a master sword that just doesn't break. I'm going up to rocks and I'm hitting them, and I'm able to break and mine ore efficiently without ever worrying about how much my next weapon is breaking.
Awesome.
It's really cool. I've upgraded almost all the armor that I wanted. And again, I have tens of thousands of rupees. And I just have a collection of swords that I like to have, but I'm not using because I never use them because I have an infinite master sword. And it's amazing these glitches. Like the blessing from Kind of Funny said this, where it's like it's interesting to see Tears of the Kingdom is a bug-free experience. It's very high quality, and it also has the most like item duplication glitches like that we've ever seen in a video game, because there are several different layers of this item duplication glitch, and the community hasn't been able to drill it down to a really, really simple one where if you just jump off a ledge, parachute, and then just start dropping stuff off, and then press Y and B at the same time, and then out of the menu, then you just duplicated your stuff by 5. So you can go from 1 diamond to 20 diamonds within seconds. It's incredible. It's very powerful, and yeah, it totally breaks the economy of the game. It's really funny to go up to a store that just has like cloth as its roof, and you're like, here, I have these 50 diamonds, and they're like, great, we'll pay you 30,000 rupees for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Gene, I think I'm willing to give you a pass in the fact that you played through the game the natural way.
I beat it legit for sure. Yeah.
You beat it legit. And the thing I would say to Mario, and I'm curious what you think about this, Dagan, as well, but for Mario, I'm like, hey, you play games for fun. And I guess if you're going to find more fun out of breaking the game and getting through it quickly, maybe, but just as a warning, this is what a lot of people think is not necessarily a once in a lifetime, but one of the greatest games of all time. Do you really want to cheat yourself out of the standard experience through this glitch? Exactly. And it's like, that's why I was saying with Gene, he's played through the game naturally, so I can understand at that point, but you may find yourself in some regret later on thinking, I really loved that game. Maybe at the end of the year when you're reviewing things and thinking, really love that game. Wish I would have spent more time with it. So Dagan, how are you feeling about this glitch? And I also just in general, as someone who's been perusing through Hyrule for the last week and a half since we talked last, how's it going?
Love what you just said, Dust. That really speaks to me because, I agree. Gene gets a full pass. He invested the time, committed the blood, sweat, and tears, went on the grueling quest, did all the legwork. Then you're totally entitled then to want to play something broken or try a different way to get through it quickly. But I have to say, I hate the idea of hastily wiping the slate clean just to kind of free yourself up and get ready for new releases, right? Especially with something like Tears of the Kingdom, which really is really worthy of the time spent. So I like the idea of the entertaining quality of exploring something that's broken, but just to get from A to Z quickly, that's I'm an old school gamer. That doesn't speak to me. I'm the guy that spent 70 hours with Final Fantasy VII. It's like that's just opposite of who I am. And it's funny, it's ironic that we're having this conversation because I'm probably only maybe 8 hours on from our last conversation. So what, 16, 18 hours in. And I have to say, man, I'm going through sort of very slowly. I'm moseying, picking fights, collecting items, exploring, crafting recipes, hunting with my bow, killing as many innocent creatures as possible, cooking them over the fire, and just wandering. I mean, it really occurred to me last night, just like complete hippie style. Like the only thing, I don't have the Led Zeppelin soundtrack and I don't have the spliff. Like everything else is like just, wow, dude. Like I'm just enjoying going through and savoring it. Like in fact, I really do. It's to a fault because I need to really get on course and sort of get on a program. But I'm really having fun just taking my time with the game. And I think part of it for me is also, I have to admit, I find it a little intimidating, just the sheer size and the scale and the scope. So I think some of it on my part is procrastination with getting on track. Just like I'd rather just mosey, do I'll undertake a shrine here and there, but I do have to get on course. I'm the opposite of Mario. But I think that's really where I've been going. The other thing with Tears of the Kingdom, Dust, that I've really been enjoying, I'm typically a big art side kind of thing. I like the art side of things. I'm not a tech dude by any means, but I've really been enjoying all the how did they squeeze this out of the Switch conversation, programming people and game dev experts and folks that just know the hardware, you know, whether they're professional or amateurs, just marveling over the size as directly related to the hardware that's generally seen as, of course, underpowered. So I'm loving that whole how did they do this has been very entertaining for me, because it's not just the world as far as open world big, but just what you could do and the amount at your fingertips, everything at your disposal, and the amount of choice in the game is pretty overwhelming. It's pretty staggering. It reminds me of early NES days as compared to the NES games that were coming out once the dawning of the 16-bit generation was underway, right? We go from black box games in 1986 to the late Mega Man games or Metal Storm or Creon Conquest, things we never thought could come out in 90, we thought in 86, there's no way this little gray box is capable of putting this out. And then in 91, there was such a departure as far as what you could squeeze out of this hardware. It's a very similar thing. And I know we have to be late in the Switch conversation before the dawning of the next era for Nintendo hardware wise. So that's been pretty fascinating. I'm not usually in on those conversations, but my ears have been pricked for that, where it's like, wow, that people in the know are really impressed, which then doubles down on how impressed I am with it. But I mean, I'm having so much fun with it. The other thing, Dust, I don't know if you noticed this. There's something that I discovered a couple of days ago that sort of dawned on me, and as a departure and evolution from Breath of the Wild, and that's that there's a kind of, I don't know how to really say this, it's more nuanced level design wise than Breath of the Wild, in that you need to be a little more discerning or analytical just in terms of the environment in order to progress. In other words, there's been a couple of times, even though the world is so big, where I'm like, I don't have the tools to go on. And then you look around and you're like, you idiot, there's a narrow version of cliff there to climb up that's not covered in ice. You go up that. I don't remember that being a thing. I remember traversing the land in a linear way being a little easier in Breath of the Wild. They definitely made that more challenging, and I had to acclimate my mentality to that with this game, where it's a little, you got to pay a little more attention to your surroundings. I don't know if you found the same thing, or if it's just been a while for me from the Breath of the Wild days. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I found in particular the feeling where I'm getting that the most is the Sky Islands, where there'll be times that I'm up on one and I see one in the distance that's way higher than I already am. And I think I have no idea how to get there. And I don't think they've even given me the proper tools to do that. I'm going to have to pull from my resources, get some rockets or something. And then you look and there's like one of those floating platforms, and there's some rockets on top. It's like, okay,
right,
I see what you're doing here. They do often present you with the things that you need. And sometimes the level of, it's weird because, and I know this has been the common thing said around the game, but the things that I think they designed for, they make them feel obscure. Like, oh, that isn't, when you do it, you think that wasn't the way I was supposed to do that. And then sometimes I'm like, no, that was the way. It's just, you would have never expected that.
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just the reoccurring thing when Holly and we often, almost every night now when we're kind of unwinding, she'll be playing on her Switch Lite and I'm playing on the TV. And probably 3 or 4 times a night, we say, well, that wasn't the way you're supposed to do that, but it worked. And clearly at some point you think, well, that's what it was intended to be done that way. I think sometimes, though, what is surprising me the most, and I just, without lack, I don't know, this is so early in the game. There are 4 main things to do at the very beginning of the game. They tell you to do. I have done all 4 of those things.
Oh, okay. Wow, you're far.
Well, and Gene, I need to talk to you privately because I want to gauge where I'm at as far as completion and stuff like that. But during one of those 4 things, I was shocked that because I had played the game enough and where I had done it, I could just totally break it. I didn't really have to do parts of the puzzles because I knew ways and I had the resources that I could just kind of do it my way, you know? And it's weird because when I did that, I thought, am I cheating? Is this unsatisfying because I didn't do the Nintendo intended puzzle? And again, it was one of those situations where they don't care. The game was designed with that in mind.
Yes.
And then it suddenly became super satisfying that I feel like I got one over, but it's like, no, you didn't get one over on them. They knew that people were going to do this and they were totally cool with that. If they didn't want you to do it, they would have designed it a different way.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think that more and more that I just absolutely love about the game. I feel like and I don't know if Nintendo, when they were designing it, would like this because they obviously want you to be immersed and thinking about, having fun with the game. But I feel like there's this meta silent conversation between me and the designers of this game constantly when I'm playing it, where I'm thinking about, oh, what were you trying to do here? Oh, you were trying to make me do this. And let me tell you, they are always smarter than me every time. But it's the level of thought in so many different aspects is shocking to me. The care. And that was the thing before that I was saying on Sacred Symbols before this came out. And I think maybe I said this last week, so sorry if I said this in the past, but when it was revealed that this game had the same map, right? And they've been working on it for 6 years, immediately I thought, what have they been doing for this long? And it's not in a negative way. It was a legitimate question. Not that, oh, they haven't done anything. What are they doing? It's like, there's got to be something to this game that has taken them a really long time. And it's so incredibly obvious now. It's every time I sit down to play it,
It's unbelievable. Yeah, that's what I mean in terms of size. It's not just the vast nature of the world, Dust. It's very well said, everything you just related. It's that gift of choice. And the fact that even though you feel like you figured it out, it was probably 99.9% intended. I've never witnessed, I've been gaming for a long time. I've never witnessed something like this before. And again, I'm less than 20 hours in. And that's the thing, too. And I know Gene knows this, that supposedly reports came out that they were done with this game, soup to nuts, well over a year before it came out. They spent an entire year sort of level testing, debugging, pushing, pulling, getting down to the nitty gritty, just exploring everything they had done. Not everything was pixel perfect. It was just really going in and again, like thoughtfully assessing their work. I've never heard of that, on a full-time basis going in. And that's what they spent over 12 months doing, which the proof's in the pudding. You could see that in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Gene, any other thoughts as we kind of wrap up this update on Tears of the Kingdom? I know you're a lot further than us and you're kind of probably getting into the real nitty gritty of things at this point, but I don't know, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm pretty much at endgame. It's interesting, Dustin, to hear you talk about like, oh my God, that island is so high up. And I remember that feeling. I remember thinking, how am I going to get up there? But now that I've duped my way through the post game, I now have full battery. So that's 8.
Damn, I'm working towards that, and it's tough.
Wow. It's tough. It's a grind, man, because you really got to spend a lot of time in the depths mining the hell out of the zonite. So I duped my way through all the zonite. So now I have 8 full batteries. I have double full batteries. So I actually have 16 full batteries. And I'm creating that little green goblin creation that everyone's talking about, where it's basically one steering device and 2 fans that you stick to the side. Very, very cheap. It only costs 9 zonite to auto build. So even if you don't have the fans or the steering wheel handy, you can just click on the auto build and be like, I want to build this. 9 zonite, very easy to build. And you can just fly everywhere. So I'm basically like flying around like the Green Goblin, like Norman Osborn, Link, just going through each island with my little goblin glider and like fighting like the King Gleok monster. And I just like knock them out of the way. It's like, all right, well, time to hop on to the next island and clean that up. I'm finding all the little like hidden trinkets and treasures that I didn't find earlier. And it's so much easier because I'm just I have so much battery that I think I can fly on my little glider from the beginning to end in high roll, back and forth. And it's just a lot of fun. It just feels like very freeing. It's very chill, because there's a long distance between these islands. So most of the time, I feel like I'm playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it's in high roll, and I'm Link, which is awesome.
Yeah, the glider thing has been interesting to see because I'm seeing some different designs. I saw one that's more of like a bike.
Yes,
I tried to make, and I had a really tough time getting that to work right.
That one's harder to make because it's based on different angles. It's kind of like a zigzag or whatever. But it's also easier to control if you get it right. But I actually haven't been able to make a bike that's just symmetrical enough that it flies straight. Mine just keeps kind of curving to the right.
Yeah,
but that's
hey, there's your Nintendo, the clean Nintendo show that you.
Yeah. So that's why I'm sticking to the Goblin Glider that goes from this that goes on the sides because it's just really easy to make. I know I got that one right, and it's been super helpful. Just make sure that the fans are kind of like at a 45-degree angle from the steering wheel. So even if you let go the stick, you're just kind of flying forward. And if you want to elevate, then you hold up on the stick to go up or down. Yeah, super fun. And last night I actually built my first mech. Like just straight up using the pots that you get to cook, construction heads, beams, cannons, the stabilizer, some wheels, and some carts, and you glue it all together, and magically it seems to work. And so now I'm driving around Hyrule on this bipedal mech that auto targets lasers and cannons, and it's incredible. I can't believe it. Like I never thought I'd be able to do something like that. I thought I would never build a mech. I'm like, who cares? So whatever. And I thought last night I was like, I should just build a mech.
Yeah, why not?
And it worked. It's interesting because like it was a work in progress where I would like try out the arm cannons, and then the auto targeter would go off so far that it would actually tear the arm off because like the enemy was running off the screen but the arm was still following it.
So cool.
And then the arm would just like rip off. I'm just like, okay, well maybe I need to like fix the balance, and like I will re-glue things together. So it really made me feel like kind of like a mad scientist.
Yeah, you're like an engineer, man. A porcelain mech. I love it. I love that's another thing too. I love the future primitive sort of the whole vibe. I mean, Zelda's been doing that for a long time, but I love that. You're mixing past elements with futuristic things. It really makes for wonderful world building and a really cohesive art direction. You got to give it to that. Even if you don't like it, you got to give a nod to that brilliant art direction. It's very doubled down in what it is. It never veers off from the vibe, which I love. Yeah.
It's just been such a fun game. The social element for me, it's funny. This is a single player game, but it feels like a multiplayer game in the way that you talk to people about it and what you see online and seeing the different creations, the mechs and stuff like that. It's just been...
It's a little bit like Elden Ring, where, there's a lot of people last year were like, oh, I didn't do that because everyone was going to so many different directions in Elden Ring. And then with Zelda, there's that and also the different things that people are creating. So like it honestly, I said that this might be bigger than Elden Ring, and I think it actually is. Which is a crazy thing to say. When Elden Ring came out, I was like, oh man, Zelda's done. Like, I don't know how Zelda can compete against this. And then Tears of the Kingdom comes out, and I'm like, I think I like Tears of the Kingdom better. Because when I hit 120 hours in Elden Ring, I was actually pretty tired. I was like, God, I love the game, but I was exhausted. And I don't know if I want to keep playing it after I beat it. Tears of the Kingdom, I'm already like 70 hours past beating it, and I'm still like really excited to go back and play some more, because I want to tune that mech up some more,
That's the ultimate testament to the game.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Micah, do you, with all this hype and all the talk and the din, are you tempted, or are you still staying at arm's length?
So it's complicated because I keep seeing how much fun people are having with it, and I definitely have, like what Dustin mentioned earlier, the like FOMO about I want to be in on this, but I still don't think I'd actually like it. Like I think I'd enjoy aspects of it. I think I'd enjoy the combat. I don't think I'd enjoy the puzzle solving because what I'm really enjoying in like Octopath Traveler actually is the boss battles themselves can be pretty complex in terms of building your perfect party to maximize damage. And essentially in Octopath Traveler, you know, the bosses have like shield points. You weaken their shield, then you can do bonus damage. You really need to optimize your party in order to just like do the most damage possible and, you know, not die. And that's my type of problem solving. Like you have 8 characters, mixing them up the best way possible, using their secondary jobs to actually get like the most damage. That's my type of problem solving that I really enjoy. And similar to how I love my like strategy RPGs, I love Fire Emblem, stuff like that. That's really my like niche for problem solving. What I'm seeing in Zelda looks fun, but I just don't think I'd actually enjoy it. I did find out I have one friend locally who has the game, so I might have a chance to actually try it out. Because otherwise, like everyone I know who has it is far away. So like I can't like just borrow someone's copy of it. But I do have one person locally I know that has it. So maybe I'll give it a try. It's also what we talked about, the price point of like, man, this game's never going to go on sale.
No, never.
So I don't really want to buy it and then find out I don't like it. It'll resell pretty high though, I'm sure. Trade it in at GameStop for $5.
Yeah. $5 whole dollars.
I am tempted though.
Yeah.
I will say I am tempted by how much fun people seem to be having with it. Seeing them crucifying the little guys there and running around on carts. That looks very fun. That gives me like Minecraft vibes of just, you know, dicking around. Definitely. So I don't know. It might get me at some point.
Listen, I take the best care of my Koroks. I build them little carriages. I only once put a rocket on one. No crucifying. These boys, they're just looking for their friend. You know, they just want to have a nice camp out with their buddy. They need help. So
they're pretty cute.
People got to take it easy on the Koroks.
I'd be a menace. You never should have come here.
So let's get into some of our news topics. And the first two are new Zelda related. I was going to say they're news related. It's like, no shit, they're news related. They're news topics. 2 Zelda topics. But, of course, you know, right now with it being one of the releases of one of the biggest games probably of all time, it's par for the course. So number 1, and this is data that came out, I think, shortly after we recorded last week, but it's worth touching on, is that Tears of the Kingdom sold over 10 million copies in its first 3 days and is now the fastest selling Zelda game ever. And I guess for me, when I read this, it's don't get me wrong, it's great news for fans of the series. It's of course great news for Nintendo, who's just made a shit ton of money on this game. But it's really kind of not surprising in any way. You think about the huge install base of the Switch being the, third best-selling console of all time, or third or fourth. We talked about that last week.
Yeah.
And then being a sequel to a launch game that everyone seemed to play or wanted to play or at least knew about, you know? So 10 million in 3 days. I'm sure it's many, many more million now since then as well. And this is just one of those games that is just going to sell and sell and sell and continue to sell. And I mean, that's, I guess, what Nintendo is so good at, is keeping their games at a high value and keeping them desirable well past their release date and zeitgeist or whatever. So Dagan, how are you feeling? You know, the Switch this late in its life, feeling more alive than ever with this release.
It's unbelievable. I think you could draw this up, the success of this game, up to probably 4 things, and the biggest one being how good the game is. But the other 3, I think, obviously what you said, Dust, the success of Breath of the Wild, everybody loved. So many people, there were so many lovers of that game, so they were waiting for the successor. I think the 6-year, the 6-year drought definitely played into it, and I think Nintendo's very strategic lack of marketing. You know, they kept this game relatively shrouded in secrecy, whether for right or for wrong. So everybody was chomping at the bit to finally get this thing. And also kind of a long time for a big Nintendo IP drop. And I'm not talking about Metroid Dread, which I loved. I'm not talking about smaller things. I'm talking about a mainline thing. People were just ready. And if you look at the whole length of time, that whole timeline, the marketing period, all of that, it seems very Nintendo in how strategic it all is. And, look, now you get the payoff. Dovetails almost perfectly with the Super Mario movie and their sort of investment in this entertainment brand that they're now spinning into and everything. So it's the Nintendo hype machine. The only thing, Micah was saying, so she was spot on with the artificial scarcity conversation earlier, which I guess really started with the Wii console, right? Like you just couldn't get a fucking Wii. Oh, sorry, Chaos.
Oh, hey.
Oh, whoa, we'll edit it out. Chaos, calm down,
Dagan.
dude. I said frigging. You couldn't get a Wii, so I guess it really started then, which was 20 years ago or something. But that's the only thing that surprises me. Like, it would have been kind of funny for Nintendo to make movie tickets scarce, and it would have been funny for them to not let people get hold of the game right away. I could definitely see them taking the amiibo strategy philosophy with that. But other than that, I think it was kind of the confluence of a lot. It was the perfect storm for this game, and it really does make sense. My question to you guys real quick is this the greatest Zelda game? We're all old heads. We all know Zelda going back to its infancy. Is this the best one?
That's so tough.
It's tough.
It's tough because I feel like for me, when I always think of the greatest Zelda game, my gut reaction is always Ocarina of Time. And what that meant at the time as far as 3D adventure games and just how that game still holds up, at least to me today.
Great game.
But I surely from many other perspectives, this would be the greatest Zelda game. Yeah. But I don't know, Gene, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I actually have a ranking of the best Zelda games of all time, my personal ranking, and I put Breath of the Wild at number 1. This is better than Breath of the Wild, like by every single measure, other than like, I guess that initial mood and tone of being lonely in this new vast world of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. That's irreplaceable, right? You can't get that back. But with Tears of the Kingdom, it feels like it makes Breath of the Wild almost obsolete. I feel weird to call Tears of the Kingdom the best the Zelda game, and then Breath of the Wild number 2.
Yeah.
So at that point, I think I would probably knock Breath of the Wild a little bit lower. I actually rank Ocarina of Time as number 7, because I don't think that the game has aged very well. Mostly, I think other games, including Majora's Mask and Wind Waker, have just aged better overall.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is kind of the ultimate Zelda game. I've been thinking about that a lot, and it's my favorite. Breath of the Wild is within the rankings of my top 3 favorite games of all time, including Dark Souls and Resident Evil 4. Those are my top 3 favorite games of all time, and depending on my mood on the day, it could be one of the 3 as my favorite game. And it's still fresh, but I do think I like Tears of the Kingdom better. I think I know that I like Tears of the Kingdom better more than Elden Ring, because one, I don't like Elden Ring more than Dark Souls. Elden Ring isn't my favorite Souls game, even though as grand as that game was. So yeah, I'm still percolating in terms of where I think Tears lies, but I think it's going to have a strong legacy moving forward.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it's in your conversation. You're a veteran gamer. You've been there since the beginning. You have a list of top games. You kind of do this partially for a living, right? Like this is your jam, Gene. The fact that it's in your conversation, it's been out for less than, what is it? The game that's been out for technically less than 2 weeks. You've had it a little longer.
Less than 2 weeks. I've had it for like a month already now.
Unbelievable.
And the way that it encompasses so many different Zelda ideas, like Link Between Worlds was a game about how Link is able to turn himself into a 2D format and like absorb himself into walls. And now here's Zelda doing that with Ascend, where you can just basically like shoot yourself up into any ceiling within the 3D space. That's incredible.
So cool.
Like just the way this game, man, like lets you rethink how 3D space, like spatial awareness works is just mind blowing, And for me, like I see tweets about people seeing a stick and a rock together and they think about fusing things. I think the best video games are the kind that make you still think about how those games apply in the real world. I remember when I first played GoldenEye in N64, or and Metal Gear Solid. And it forever changed my perspective on how I look at hallways, and not only hallways, but cameras. I'm always keenly aware of security cameras now.
What's the field of view on that? You know, what's the triangle that it can see?
And it's not just because I used to steal shit, you know, from Kmart, you know, but my thievery was inspired by GoldenEye and Metal Gear Solid. You know,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so that's gonna have to be a constellation topic, is stealing, and it has to have Gene on it, because I need to know about this Kmart thievery,
doing crimes.
Yeah, Mike, I want to throw this to you, and I know I'm not gonna ask you to rank Zelda, but 10 million in the first 3 days. You got to imagine that Sony and Microsoft are looking at this like, motherfuck, what can we do? we can't get anywhere near this, you know, with a lot of first party IP. And I mean, Microsoft's not even looking for sales at all when you take in Game Pass to account. So I don't know, it's a little bit vague, but just seeing an IP from, often I feel like Nintendo, I mean, I guess it's a separate conversation. I don't want to say they're left out of the conversation. They kind of are their own separate thing in a lot of ways, but somehow tied in the same way. So how do you feel about just seeing any game reach that level of success?
Oh, no, I think it's just thrilling, just as someone who just plays a lot of games. You're just happy to see the industry doing well. I'm happy to see something take off like this and be genuinely beloved. You know, it's not just like, oh, Call of Duty sells a lot of copies every year and it has a ton of problems sometimes. You know, people aren't actually super happy with it, but they bought it. This isn't that case at all. This is, you know, so many people purchasing the game, absolutely loving it. And it's also just, it's inspiring more people to try gaming again. I'm seeing so many people on Twitter saying, I haven't played, you know, Zelda in years, but I want to play this. You know, should I buy a Switch right now? And people debating on, you know, is it a good time to buy a Switch, a bad time? I think you should just buy one if you want one, because we just have no idea when the next one is actually going to come out. Like, and the catalog is huge. If you pick up a Switch at this point in time, you won't be bored by any means. There are so many games to go back to. So for me, the best part of this, just as an observer of people, you know, playing Zelda, is seeing people who want to get back into gaming, you know, being inspired to pick up, you know, a Switch and decide like, hey, I want to get back into this. I want to see what all the fuss is about. And also, too, just a reminder that gaming is not this, you know, totally out of left field thing that, you know, most people don't care about. It really is just a nice kind of thing. Like, yeah, we're not just a bunch of weirdos, okay, who play games as adults. There's a lot of us. There's a ton of us. And it just makes me feel a bit better being an adult, like especially an adult woman in the gaming space, because that often gets a lot of like sideways glances type thing. When I drop off like packages, for example, for our, you know, merch at the post office, one time the clerk asked me like, what is all this stuff that you're always bringing in? And I explained like, oh, we're a video game podcast network. And he's like, you know? And so it's just like, it really is in the outside world sometimes, or people like giving you a sideways glance wearing a Pokemon shirt and you're 30 years old. So it just makes me feel better.
Yeah.
To see the popularity of something like this and how it's just taken off. Not a surprise. As you mentioned, it's certainly not a surprise that a mainline Zelda game would sell this well. But I'm still just happy for what it means for the gaming community, you know, in general, to have such stellar sales numbers.
Yeah. And this is a perfect segue, talking about this mainstream success, to our number 2 topic, that I wanted to go to the article that Gene was talking about writing last episode. And you can check this out on the Washington Post website, and you can read it for free. You just got to put your email in. And Gene, you wrote an article called "The Genius Behind Zelda is at the Peak of His Power and Feeling His Age." And so this is an interview with Eiji, I got to make sure I say this right. Eiji Aonuma, right?
Eiji Aonuma.
Aonuma. Okay, yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'm pretty good at reading Japanese names at this point, but that one's a little tough.
It's a little tricky. Aonuma is a tricky name.
Aonuma. So, Gene, you had the opportunity to interview him, and I don't want to spoil everything in this article because there's so many interesting tidbits in that. When I was researching news for this show, parts, sites, taking bits of your article and writing it up were everywhere. I was seeing it all over the place. There was just so many interesting things that you got out of that. Particularly for me, I loved that they talked about that so much of Tears of the Kingdom was inspired by what they were seeing on social media. That people were doing with Breath of the Wild, creating, different vehicles and stuff, even when it wasn't even possible in the game. And just this mindset around, I have a quote here, and I can't remember who said this in the article, but it says, "We are always striving to create surprise. That is the drive. And that is what perhaps Zelda is." That was one of the most profound things I think said in the entire article. But enough of me talking about it. I want to hear your experience with this interview. And just overall, I mean, having this awesome hit piece. Congratulations.
Thank you. That quote was actually by Tears game director.
That's what I thought.
Hidemaru Fujibayashi. And the interview was fun. So I went up to New York City, and both Aonuma and Fujibayashi were in New York City for the Rockefeller Center launch. But they also were staying at the West End. And so this interview was at their executive suite that they were staying at up at the West End. And when you walk into the room, they have a little table spread full of like little food and grapes and shit. And they had a little Tears of the Kingdom banner up and a bunch of like Korok plushies around the couches and everything, just so everyone gets real cozy. And they had a Switch in front of us just in case any reporters needed reminding what we're there for. It's really funny that they decided to put a Switch, and it's like, remember, this is about a Nintendo Switch game. And yeah, so I saw Aonuma-san and Fujibayashi, and it was funny because Doug Bowser, the president of Nintendo of America, actually snuck into the room just to get some snacks, and that was the first time I saw him. Doug and I have been communicating back and forth for a while. He's been very encouraging for me during my own health crisis. So it was really, really cool to just see him in person. And yeah, he popped in and said, "Hey, Gene, I'll see you later tonight." And he just popped back out after he got his food. Because I only have 45 minutes with both men. I was also proud of the article because we hired a photographer. So a bunch of other sites had interviews with Aonuma up, and they were able to get their stories up the next day. But we took a week to write this. I took a week to write this, and we also had to process the photos, and it was very edited very carefully. It's a pretty long piece, about 2,000 words, and yeah, I really wanted to focus the piece on not just the nuts and bolts of the game, but also just how I wanted it to be a profile piece. I wanted to really get into the minds of these men and see what motivates them, and to see what they think of what they refer to as "quote unquote" the ethos of Zelda. And it's kind of like the type of interrogation that I imagine Dagan would want to have with these folks, right? Just really dig into what drives them as creators and what motivates them and how. And we talked about his age. I was like a Zelda game is kind of like an Olympics event, like comes every few years, and every time one drops, you're always a different person, for me, like I'm literally like I have different blood in my system than I did 6 years ago, and that's partially because of the blood transfusion I had to have last year. But like we're all like in different skin now. We might be in different positions. We're engaged now. We have children now. Could be married, but yet Zelda persists. And its creators are persisting too. Fujibayashi has been working on Zelda games for a long time too, even though he's "quote unquote" the up and comer successor to Aonuma in terms of running the series. So it was really, really great to meet both of these folks. I was able to practice a little bit of my Japanese. I used to know some Japanese enough to kind of like baby my way through a conversation, but now it's deteriorated to a point where I can just say hello, nice to meet you, and thanks so much for having me here. And that was about it. It was fun to them be a little confused and wonder if I actually knew Japanese. So the pronunciation was good. And I had to specify, no, that's all the Japanese I know, and which I said in Japanese. So, and that's like the limit of my Japanese. So it was really interesting because I know that Nintendo, Aonuma, both men are very, very humble. So it was a little bit like pulling teeth to get them talking about themselves versus their product. Which is why, like, I have that little detail in my story. When we were at the New York store, Aonuma was really freaking out over like the hoodie that they had over there, and he really wanted to buy it. And everyone was like, "Oh, just take it, dude." Like, you're the general manager of like the
you created
video game development. You created. You're making Zelda, dude. Like it has Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on it. Like, this hoodie would not exist without you. And he was like, "No, I have to buy it. I'm not gonna like just get it." And like the employees were like, "At least get the 20% discount, the employee discount."
Love the.
And he was like, "Fine, I'll get the discount." So he paid for it with himself. He went up to the counter, paid for a bunch of stuff with a credit card. Fujibayashi too. He bought a coffee mug that was like $45-$50. It's not cheap. It's definitely the Nintendo markup in terms of these products. This hat is like $30.
Classy.
So, but yeah, they really just wanted to just look like that they're spending money in their own store, which is fun. And yeah, again, they really didn't want the focus to be on themselves. But so that's why I like, for me, the interview process, I did talk about the game most of all. Just to kind of let their guard down. Interviewing, as Colin would know, is an art. It's navigating certain moods and feelings as people are having conversations, kind of like going on a date, right?
Yeah.
What you say matters, and what you say and how they respond would matter, and how they feel about what you're asking matters. So yeah, I kind of ease into that. And the last questions I asked were about, how are you feeling? How are you doing? What was this like for you versus like the past experiences? And and I also asked, how are you a different person than when you made Breath of the Wild? So that's what led to the answer of Aonuma saying, I played this game for a week and a half, 20 times, and it's very exhausting, because he has to crunch through it. And he's played the same game. Like I played the game once, and I played it for 120 hours, right? So I can't imagine playing through that entire game 20 different times over and over again. Like, that's exhausting. It sure doesn't sound like it's exhausting, but he's like taking notes. He's paying attention to everything, So yeah, it was interesting to hear him talk about how tired he was, but he definitely remains committed to stay on Zelda. I know that's been some cause of like discussion of concern whether he might retire, and I think he probably has one more title in him before he does.
It's awesome. So cool. I think of this game, I look at it and I get exhausted thinking about creating it, shepherding it. Really kind of, I love the story of a hands-on leader. That's a real leadership to me. Playing the game yourself, having that conversation with your crew, with everybody else in the trenches, making the thing. And also you were able to elicit a little bit of that. I'm exhausted, because there's always that very prototypically Japanese, not only polite and unapologetically grateful, but just not wanting to look like you're complaining in any way for yourself, exactly. For the corporate image and all that kind of thing. But to be able to say, like, look, this was, because we all know, look at the product. This had to be exhausting, and also being able to have that. I know as a creator, not certainly never being a part of something this big, but knowing for yourself that there's that respite period of just needing that mental space and physical space before you could even think about delving into the next thing. And he's probably, they're probably in that mode right now. But it is exciting, because once you rest up and you heal and you kind of gain that head of steam towards the next thing, it'll be interesting to see what's next. And it'll be interesting to see, how do they ever top when you have something so wonderful, whether it be a movie, a TV series, a video game, and you get something and you hit top marks and everybody loves it. It's universally beloved. Where do you go from here? That's interesting too. But I'm sure they're not ready to talk about that yet.
Yeah. Also, another detail was when we were taking a photo, the photographer asked him to sit down. I mentioned this in the article. And then Aonuma mutters to himself like a grandpa. And he doesn't say it in English. My Japanese, again, was extended enough where he says, like, oh, Oji-san, And I was like, oh, man. Oh, man, he really thinks of himself as Oji-san. That's crazy. Like, because that's what I say to myself, the Korean equivalent of Oji-san is ajashi, the older man. And I've been called ajashi by older women. Like these women would be in their 70s and they'll call me like old man, which is like, which drives me insane.
That's crazy.
But yeah, like I am 41 and I've gotten sick, and so like when I do sit down, I'm just like, just like an ajashi, just like my dad, So that's why I saw a little bit of myself in him too. The way he's kind of like humbling himself and like knowing where he is in life,
Yeah. Gene, I'm not gonna lie, jealous of this incredible experience. Obviously, doing this and being able to talk to the creative minds behind this, groundbreaking game.
Yeah, it's the kind of story I always wanted to write. I interviewed Hideo Kojima with Death Stranding, and that was a really popular article too, really long one, and we had a nice deep conversation about Death Stranding, the internet, and stuff like that. It's the kind of content I want to make. I really enjoy having these conversations with creators, and I like letting other people read and watch,
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Gene. One time at E3, Reggie said hello to me. I remember in a big, joyous grandpa voice with some other guys. He said, "Hello, boys." Yeah. So I think that might rival this experience that you had, but and I don't want to brag or anything. But
what's funny is that like I saw Jeff Keighley of Game Awards fame. I didn't expect him to see him in New York, but he just shows up outside in his little like hoodie and everything like that too. And then he was like, "Oh, Gene, you're here." I was like, "Reggie texted me that you'd be here," and I was like, "That's crazy," because like I emailed Reggie that I'd be there because Reggie and I talk every once in a while, and then like Reggie decided to tell Jeff like, "Oh yeah, Gene Park's gonna be there. Go say hi to him too."
Hell yeah!
So that's like that was like a really like fun moment where I'm just like, "Whoa, Reggie Fils-Aimé, the former Nintendo president, is texting Jeff Keighley, the Game Awards impresario,
awesome.
about how I'm gonna be there."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun life.
Well, I recommend all of our listeners go check out Gene's article at the Washington Post. Go read it. Go actually sit down, read it. Don't read someone else's clip out on some other inferior website. Go read the article.
Yeah, and Nintendo.com. I'm kidding. I enjoy being aggregated. Yeah. I think it's. I think that's when I knew. That's when I knew that the piece was successful.
Right.
When I'm seeing it quoted in Spawnwave or other YouTube channels, and when like My Nintendo Life and Go Nintendo and IGN are reporting on it, that's when I knew. Yeah. I was like, okay, I hit the right targets. That's the kind of article.
It's unbelievable, Gene. I think did I text you? Did I DM you about this? We got done recording the first episode of Punching Up. A few hours later, about 10 o'clock at night, I realized I didn't have any gas in my car. I have to shuttle the kids around the next day. Hop out, go to the gas station. In the driveway, start the car. Who's talking? Gene Park. He's on NPR. He's having a formal interview, very eloquent and articulate as always. And I was like, can't get away from this guy. You can't just get away from the Gene Park. He's everywhere. He's in suburban Pennsylvania in my car right now. I just got done doing a 3.5-hour podcast. So, dude, and also, may I say, Gene can write. Now, not that Gene needs my writing stamp of approval, but Gene's quite the writer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, only after many years of covering crime and stuff like that, I do feel like that I've kind of paid my dues in terms of journalism. I've been in the trenches. Covering local crime and local city council. So
you made your bones.
Yeah. So for me, I don't have like any kind of imposter syndrome. I know that's a famous like term. I didn't even know what the fuck imposter syndrome was before I moved to DC. I was like, wait a minute, like, there are people who are successful who don't believe that they should be successful. That's weird.
Yeah.
And but I can understand it too. I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome when I worked at the Washington Post. But I had a really good editor who pulled me aside and he stamped that feeling out real quick. He was like, I can feel that you're having imposter syndrome. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And he explained it to me. I was like, okay, I can kind of understand that. And he told me He was like, like I don't know what what it'll do for you to stop thinking that, and that's really all in you. What I'm here to tell you is that you've made it. You're here because you've already proven yourself. So you don't need to prove yourself anymore.
That's awesome.
You're here because you made it. That's it. You belong here.
That's huge.
And then so that immediately, he's such a great editor, Ryan Kellett. That immediately just washed away anything, any kind of insecurity that I had, and it gave me the confidence to kind of move forward.
That's awesome, dude.
Do my work for the last 8 years,
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, congrats again on the success, and everybody, make sure you I'll put the link to the article in the description so people can check it out. But we've talked a lot of Zelda on this podcast. It's time to talk about something a little different, a little bit of a throwback, new, I don't know. Number 3, Nintendo Switch Online GBA games are getting an update. This was announced, I think, last week. We're getting Super Mario Advance 1 through 3. Now, these can get a little confusing with the naming because they don't exactly line up with the original game that they are remastering. So, Super Mario Advance 1 through 3 are Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario World, and Yoshi's Island.
Okay.
And then I think 4 is Super Mario Bros. 3. So the naming is all over the place. We'll get into it more granularly in a minute here. But these are going to get added to the service on May 26th. And this game is a bit of a surprise to me, at least, just because these 3 games were not part of the outlined games that they said were coming to the system. So to get a little more in depth with this, let's go over these games. And I specifically have written what is different about the Game Boy Advance version.
Okay.
Because it's a little confusing that you have the originals, you have the Super Mario All-Stars version on Super Nintendo, and then you have the Game Boy Advance remake. And the All-Stars version and the Advance remake are pretty similar, but there are some unique reasons to go and check them out. So, Super Mario Advance 1. This is the game Super Mario Brothers 2. And so they added a mode called Yoshi's Challenge, where you have to go and find Yoshi's eggs in each level. And this is an exclusive feature to this version. Super Mario Advance 2. This is Super Mario World. This includes a pretty big addition with a playable Luigi character that has different physics when he jumps. So kind of like the other games where you play as Luigi, he jumps somewhat different.
Okay.
Super Mario Advance 3. This is Yoshi's Island, and this includes 5 exclusive levels only available on this version. And then just to round it out, even though it's already on the service, Super Mario Advance 4 is Super Mario Bros. 3, and this includes the exclusive e-reader levels. So those are just included. You don't need to get your e-reader out and figure out a way to hook that up to your Switch. They're just included on there. The e-reader is such an interesting device that I never had that I'm always intrigued by, but these levels exclusive to that version. And so to cap this off, before I throw it to you guys, there are still a lot of games when we got this announcement of Game Boy games on Nintendo Switch Online, games that are still coming. So on the Game Boy side, we're still waiting for Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Ages, Pokemon the Trading Card Game, and Kirby Tilt and Tumble. And then for Game Boy Advance, Kirby and the Magic Mirror, Fire Emblem, F-Zero Maximum Velocity, the first game I owned on Game Boy Advance, and Golden Sun, which people lost their mind when that was part of the
game.
Yeah, I've heard so many great things about it. So I wanted to, I'll throw it to add in this question as well, so we can kind of just take everything in all at once and get all of my talking out of the way. This question comes from Adam Kurith, who says, "Hey, Dustin, Dagan, Micah, and Gene, I absolutely love the GBA games being added to the Switch catalog and consider it my favorite value of the subscription. With Dagan recently mentioning the GBA SP on Constellation, I was wondering what some of you guys' picks would be to add to the collection on Switch." So, Micah, I want to throw this to you first. How do you feel about the Super Mario Advance, the full collection of all 4 of them being on the service, the games to come, and what your attachment is to GBA, if there's anything you'd like to see?
Yeah, this is very exciting because I've mentioned it before on the show. I did have a Game Boy Advance SP. Well, I still have it. It's over there. I'm looking at it right now. I got it in 5th grade. It was on sale at Toys R Us. My mom bought me one, but we still didn't have a lot of money for games. So the entire time I had that system, I only had 3 games for it. I did buy a few more games, as an adult. But then when I moved here, I lost the charger. So I have some Game Boy, cartridges that I still actually haven't played because I really hate shopping on eBay. It's just not my thing. And then there was a whole debacle with some of these retro game sites that, I won't name names, but it's a little bit of a hassle to try and get a Game Boy Advance SP charger, and one that I don't want to be afraid of it like frying my system. So when we talk about the ability to easily play some of these old games, and this is exactly what people want, being able to, fire up the Nintendo Online and go through this catalog. This is the exciting stuff for me because I did miss out a lot on some of these Game Boy titles. So for me, these are all things that I did not get to play when I was a kid and only had those 3 games to choose from. Of course, I'm a big Kirby fan. So anything Kirby related has my name all over it.
Oh, I didn't
and
know
then
that.
Also, I love Kirby. And then also seeing on your list Fire Emblem, I got into Fire Emblem with the 3DS, with Awakening. And then since then, I played Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia, which I believe was a remake of an older game. And they added... Yeah, and they added new stuff to it, which was really cool. That is one of my favorite 3DS games. But I really love Fire Emblem. So this is just a really neat way to be able to go back and play these older games without the hassle of hunting down a cartridge, hunting down a charger. I totally am all for this. In addition, answering Adam's question of what's a game I'd want in this list, I don't know if it's already in here because I haven't checked it, but Breath of Fire is one of the cartridges I bought.
Good.
But I literally went to play it. That's when I realized I lost my charger when I moved here. And so I was like, all right, at some point I'll remedy that situation. But if that's not already in the online catalog, that'd be top of my list. Because I have the cartridge, it's mocking me every time I come into this room and I see it, and I can't actually play it.
I'm trying to remember Breath of Fire. So is it a remake or a re-release of the Super Nintendo? There's a Super Nintendo game called Breath of Fire as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
Is it the same game?
It probably
both systems? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it is or not. I remember seeing that. I was like, okay, this is the easiest way to play it at the time.
Yeah.
Was to get it for Game Boy.
Yeah, I think I have Breath of Fire on Super Nintendo, but I don't know much about that series. So I think that more RPGs, of course, would be always preferable. But Dagan, the Reddit mentions you and your love for the GBA.
Love it.
The GBA SP in particular. So, and the other way I wanted to throw this to you is just that these remakes, I personally don't really know how to feel about it because I kind of am a purist that if I play these games, I kind of want to play the NES version. But I've softened up a little bit with the Super Mario Bros. 3 GBA version. And I love the screen filter. They have a GBA screen filter on the Switch. And I normally don't use those. This one looks really clean. It looks great. It just looks like a big blown up GBA screen. Only it's beautiful and bright, and
love that.
I love it. So how are you feeling about these releases, and what other games do you want to see?
Yeah, I love Nintendo embracing their retro side. It does my heart good. I love them going in and revisiting classics and reintroducing them to new generation, Game Boy Advance, in particular the SP. I think it's one of the great consoles of all time. Handhelds be damned. I mean, it doesn't matter. It was a great system with great games, and they know exactly what they're doing with these Super Mario games. The four that they chose in particular, the only thing, I love having a little new content in there. The only thing that's bothering me as a Nintendo OG is Yoshi in Super Mario Brothers 2, because he wasn't introduced yet at that point. Seems like that might be a little of that's very nerdy again.
It's revisionist history.
Yeah, it's a little revisionist history. Don't retcon it. We didn't meet Yoshi yet, so I don't know. I don't. That's the only thing that's a little polarizing for me. But I
It's a
love
little sacrilegious, right?
little sacrilegious if you're an OG Nintendo head. A
Mhm.
lot of people aren't going to know this, Gene.
Mhm.
But we didn't meet Yosh yet. You know, give me some Yosh in the first 16-bit offering. Yeah, even Super Mario 3, that would be a little bit. That's
They
a
have a
little bit.
tendency to add Yoshi like wherever. Let's just the Super Mario 64 DS re-release just added Yoshi. Here's Yoshi now. Yeah.
It's.
Like Yoshi was even in the Mario movie. They're like, oh, here's Yoshi. He's not important, but
It's so
here
sneaky.
he is,
It's sneaky
weird.
because he's lovable and we love him. And we kind of like, oh, right, give us Yoshi. But then, if you really think about it in a historical perspective, it's like, I don't know. But, I love them doing Golden Sun. I mean, this is one of the great overlooked RPGs of all time. Not too many people know about it. In fact, I probably bought it, the original cart, probably from eBay 8 years ago, and I still paid like $45 for it, like cart only. It was relatively rare, I think. Did Camelot do Golden Sun? I'm not sure, but one of the great ones.
Yeah.
And I think keep going in this direction. Minish Cap, Superstar Saga.
I think is Minish Cap on the service currently?
It might be.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
okay,
on
so
there
that's one of the
already.
ones that is on there. Yeah.
Oh, so they got they got their T's crossed and their I's dotted. And Gunstar Superheroes was another one of my favorites.
Yes,
and then there's
that was what I was going to mention.
I think it's another Treasure. Did Treasure do this one too?
Yeah,
Astro Boy Omega Factor is a great action game for the GBA that I would love to see them put on. Again, very expensive if you're after the traditional actual cart or, God forbid, in the box or whatever. I think it's hundreds of dollars now, but that's a great game too. But there's a great catalog. That was a generation of games that there weren't too many duds. Like the quality of the catalog collectively is really impressive. So it's cool. And, it's good. And you know what? It behooves them, right? They have these games. They're already done. They're already developed. You got to remaster them or whatever a little bit. Bells and whistles. But this is at basically no or little cost to them. And they're going to, this is Nintendo doing, reaping the rewards. Very clever. The only thing I'll say is what you were saying, Dust. I do have that sort of old head OG side that wants to play the original bit iteration. Like I want to play Super Mario 2 in 8-bit. I want to play Super Mario 3 in 8-bit. I don't want the 16-bit pixel remaster, but I will say almost to a game, once you're in it for 5 minutes, you forget all about that because it's just that your historic tie to the game felt like that. Once you could kind of leave that by the wayside and just enjoy it, I'm never bothered by it for more than a few minutes. I always go into it grudgingly, and then I'm like, oh no, this is. And they listen. They've been doing this since the Super Nintendo when they reintroduced all the 8-bit Mario's on the 16-bit. So it's something that we're used to, and it's nice for the little quality of life. It makes it more accessible for the new generation of gamer who might poo-poo it for the way it looks. It's a little bit more of a lowers that barrier for entry, and now everybody can enjoy it. But Golden Sun, man, I'm kind of surprised. Yeah. I feel like
I gotta play that game, and I don't want to, not to bring down the mood, but one of my best friends growing up, who unfortunately is no longer with us at this point, he passed away. That was one of his favorite games, and always told me to play it. And I never did. And so I feel like at some point I got to do it for him. When it comes to the service, it's like I gotta play Golden Sun for my friend Jordan, and I've only heard great things about that game. And it's so weird that I think they did Golden Sun 2, right? Also on GBA.
They did.
But since then it's gone totally dormant, but it has this cult following. So really interesting game. And I'm glad they're adding it. But Gene, how are you feeling? And how are you, what kind of games are you hoping come to the Game Boy Advance service?
I actually played Golden Sun back in the day when I was a college entertainment editor. I always wanted to cover video games. So this is like back in 2002. So this was my first time working with Nintendo. And like I really wanted to cover Wind Waker. And they're like, oh, yeah, we can let you cover Wind Waker. But have you tried this game Golden Sun? So it almost feels like it was like kind of like transactional, where it's like if you cover Golden Sun, then we can give you Zelda Wind Waker. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I played it, and I was like, oh, this is a really fun game. I don't remember much of it, this was during college, and my brain was very addled at the time, and it was also a very long time ago, and I'm just not very good at remembering things. Like my favorite book used to be Catcher in the Rye, and I couldn't tell you what the book was about. I have no idea what happened in that book. I know that the main character's name is Holden Caulfield, and
phonies. Everyone's a phony,
and he calls everyone phonies and idiots, and that's literally it. Like that's my only recollection of my what used to be my favorite book of all time. So I couldn't, like, Golden Sun is not one of my favorite games of all time, but it was very good. I remember enjoying it. It's interesting that the Mario games are on the GBA service, but like to what Dustin said, I do like them because I like the filter. I like the look.
Yeah.
I liked how they were kind of resized for the smaller screen, and the characters look a little bit bigger, and that's kind of cool. I like the shading. It's not great for game preservation because you don't own the games. You'd have to buy the original GBA cartridges for that. But it's really cool to have it available. For me, what I like to see, not so much on the GBA. Well, first on the GBA, I'd love to see the Sonic Advance games. I know that the Last Stand Media Collective is pretty much universally down on Sonic the Hedgehog, and I'm here to change that culture, that work culture here in the office right here.
You have Maddie in your camp. So
he likes Sonic too. That's right. Right. Yeah. Me and Maddie, man.
You can do your own Sonic. Hell, we'll give you a Sonic podcast. I mean, why not? Let's talk about all the great fan art out there. Fan art of the week.
And then me and Colin will have the only Forspoken podcast in the world.
Imagine an entire Forspoken podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Just like 16 episodes just breaking down like Forspoken.
Wow. Let's make it happen.
Because we're the only two people in the world that like that game like enough,
enough
like
to finish.
enough to play and to finish it. So.
Wow.
But getting off, what was I saying? Oh, Sonic Advance. Yeah. I like Sonic the Hedgehog games. I know that they're not the best games ever made. They don't even hold a candle to like Ratchet and Clank even, right? But just the vibe of Sonic the Hedgehog is so fun, and the art style of the Sonic Advance games were so good. I just like how cool Sonic looks. I like his animation style. I like the music. I like how the games feel, even though they can feel kind of janky. Like it's very comforting, and there's something very comforting and safe feeling about Sonic the Hedgehog because he's a very wholesome character. Despite his reputation on the internet in many other circles.
Stay off the fan art.
Yeah,
we'll be all right.
The Nintendo game I would like to see is mostly on the Game Boy service, and I want to. They haven't released Donkey Kong.
The
one that came out for 1984, the one that starts out with the first the only 4 levels of Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
and you think that's the game you're getting, and then everything falls away, and you're like, no, there's like 99 more levels, and like there's like a whole world to explore of like Donkey Kong construction like things. And it was a game that I played on the Super Game Boy. That was the game that I think Nintendo was really pushing into Super Game Boy. And for those who don't know, the Super Game Boy was basically a Super Nintendo cartridge with a Game Boy slot in it, where you can play your Game Boy games in color, and more color than they've ever been on the TV. So I love the Super Game Boy device. It's funny because like I'm now kind of like a more handheld guy. Like I really like playing games on handheld, but back then, like being able to play your Game Boy games on TV was just like mind expanding. It's like I was taking LSD for the first time.
It's true. It didn't take much back then for us.
Yeah. And Donkey Kong had like several different colors, and I was like, the music was incredible. I love the game so much. So, I'm really hoping for actual physical re-release of it. But if they put it on the service, that'd be great. I really wish that they would maybe at the end of the Switch's lifespan, if they or whatever, like if they just like release all the Nintendo Switch Online games on a single cartridge, or like a collection of cartridges, I would buy the hell out of that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But this is Nintendo we're talking about.
Yeah, this is Nintendo.
They don't want you to own it. They want to have the ability to take it away from you, as they've seen before, or they've done before. For me, I gotta say, I know this isn't happening, so that's why it's a dream. Maybe it could happen, but it's not. I wouldn't imagine it happening this way. I want Fire Red and Leaf Green from Pokemon. I love those games, and I love those remakes of them. but I just don't. I think those are too valuable to put on the service. I would imagine that they would, if they were to do it, that it would be some kind of standalone release or something like that.
Mario All-Stars collection or something.
Yeah, and they would sell you, be like, oh, well, we needed to do it as its own release so you could transfer the Pokemon out or something like that. But I've every once in a while, just because, and this is something we can get into on another episode, I'm just so turned off by modern day Pokemon right now, but I don't want to be. I want to be in that world again, but I just can't. And so sometimes I think about going back and playing either Fire Red, Leaf Green, or even my all-time fave, Soul Silver, which I love the original Silver, but that remake on the DS was so good. So maybe someday we'll get some Pokemon, some retro Pokemon love again. They did re-release Red, Blue, and Yellow on the DS pretty late, or the 3DS pretty late in its life, but now you can't even buy those. So, if you want those, too bad. Go. Your options are zero outside of modding your 3DS. So thanks, Nintendo, for that. So that's it for our news. But I have two quickies that I want to mention just real quick. The quiches. Is it quiches? Micah, how am I doing this right?
What is the multiple of quiche? I don't know. You'd have many quiche? Quiches? That doesn't sound right, actually, to say quiches.
I think that's
how many
right.
Quiches? I think you'd say, how many quiche did you bring?
Oh, you just keep it singular? And that's plural? Yeah. Okay. You might be
good question.
This is prime luck
somebody out there knows. Somebody's yelling. Some quiche expert out there.
Just have a quiche mention every episode.
Yeah.
Now I'm starving.
So, Mortal Kombat 1 was just announced, and while it's coming only to current gen PS5 Series X, it's also coming to the Nintendo Switch, which I don't know how they're going to... I mean, they pulled off the last one on Switch, so I think they'll be able to do it again. There's a big controversy about Mortal Kombat 1 being over 100 gigabytes on PS5 and Series X, so somebody get some, they're going to get the WinZip on this bad boy or something. They're going to have to double up multiple times to get this to fit or something. I don't know, but look forward to it. It's September 19th, Mortal Kombat 1. If you want to play it on your old stinky Switch at 540p or something like that. And I kid, it would be cool to be able to have that on the go for a lot of people. So I understand.
On the Game Boy. It was on Genesis and Super
There's
Nintendo.
History there. There's history there. I'm not going to knock it.
I actually bought Mortal Kombat 11 for the Switch just because I heard it was 60 FPS, and because of that nostalgia, Dagan.
Yes,
because I did play Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy. I had it on the Super Nintendo too.
I think you were talking about that recently.
I think I was talking about this. I might just be repeating myself like an old man, but like I like the fact that it can just be crunched down. So
yeah,
that's why when I saw Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch, I was like, they're still doing it. That's awesome. They're still catering to weird little like goblins like me who wouldn't mind playing the game in like 480p or like, it's probably not even going to be 540p. That's too much, man.
And again, it's the same dynamic of we're not allowed to curse. I could play Vice City and Mortal Kombat with the blood on Nintendo Switch, but we're not allowed to curse on a Switch podcast. It's like Lego sets. They used to not have guns. They have guns now. We have to evolve. Nintendo's evolved. As Gene said, Bayonetta, case in point. You have to get, Nintendo sets, Lego sets rather, the little Nintendo figure, the little Lego figures, they have guns now. They have blasters.
We need Mario to say fuck, period, in the next game. Or it'd be like, son of a bitch, or something like that,
I'm gonna do it.
It's coming.
That's with the gun, he says. So... yeah, Nintendo, give it the time.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 11 on the Switch is massive. The file size is massive. I have to uninstall all 3 Xenoblade Chronicle games just to fit Mortal Kombat 11 onto the Switch.
That's such a pain.
It's incredible. So yeah, Mortal Kombat 1 is going to be not going to be on the cartridge, just for sure.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they pull that one off.
Yeah.
One other tiny tidbit, and this was actual news from Nintendo, so I felt like we had to include it in some way. And that is Splatoon 3 is getting some new maps in this Sizzle season 2023. Okay. The 2 maps, one of them is called Barnacle and Dime, and the other one is a return map from Splatoon 2 called Humpback Pump Track. So check that out. That hump, the hump and pump and humpback something. I don't know what's going on. With Splatoon.
I'm cursing from now on. This is ridiculous now.
Yeah. So I love Splatoon. So if you are interested in that, I need to get back to Splatoon at some point, Splatoon 3, because I love that game and I didn't play
Me too.
nearly enough of it. It's sad. But guys, we have some closing questions here. Sometimes, as I said, this show is going to be very malleable. Sometimes we're going to have a main topic to dive in. Sometimes I'll have a game that we can go into. But I just felt that I really wanted to hear from the audience on this second episode, since we weren't able to at all the previous episode. So we can go through some of these questions and we'll see. Some of these I'm going to try, because some of these we could do a whole episode about. When I was reading all these questions, like, man, there is a lot of depth to a lot of these. So we'll try to see how many we can get through here. But Jeremy Cochran writes in and says, "Hey, crew. First off, just wanted to say how great the first episode was and loving the vibe already." Thank you, Jeremy.
Nice.
The NES is still my favorite console of all time. So what is it about these old consoles like the NES, SNES, etc. that make them timeless? And so many people like myself, still hold them in such high esteem, even in a world with high-end PCs, the PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series consoles. Thanks for making this show a reality. So, like I said, the question of what makes the NES and SNES timeless can be an entire episode on its own. But I wanted to make sure, we talked about last week that we wanted to keep retro as a core component of this show. And I thought this was a great question to just dive in with that aspect. And to me, it always comes down to art style and gameplay, right? And both the NES and I think really the Super Nintendo in particular just nailed it in that way. We talk about Sacred Symbols all the time about how timeless pixel art is. I mean, if it wasn't timeless, people wouldn't be making pixel art games in 2023 today. And I think there's something too where if you think about game design and game feel and stuff like that, it's not just necessarily, it wasn't just straight up as far as positives. You have this momentum from, early days, Atari and stuff like that going up and then kind of peaking at Super Nintendo. And then we kind of had to refigure things out when things went 3D. And so while that was cool from a visual and in some ways an immersion perspective, you get this dip, I think, in terms of game feel a lot of times, not always, but so, it's interesting to think about these consoles that we still love. So Micah, I'm not sure what your history is with NES and SNES, or even just, even the GameCube, I think is still people now, especially, I mean, look at the prices of GameCube games. People love that console. So what is it about it that makes people hold on to them?
Yeah. As you mentioned, this could be a whole episode. Sticking to my Cliff Note ideas on this, art style, as you mentioned, is one of the biggest things that makes these games so replayable. A few years ago, a friend and I, got out the N64. And we were just like, oh, let's play some of these games that you have. You're like, what do you got? And one of them was the South Park game. It looks so bad. We couldn't figure out what to do. We are at a point where we could not figure out what to do because the game just looked that awful. You don't have that same experience firing up, the SNES Classic, for example, and the pixel art looks great and you can tell exactly what's happening on screen. There really is just a point where some of these older, 3D games just look so ragged. And between, hooking it up to whatever, modern TV you've got as well, I was like, well, it also just doesn't look right because you don't have your old CRT and there's a lot of things going on here. But these pixel art games, they look really great still. And of course, a lot of them too are just fun. My favorite on the SNES Classic is Kirby's Dream Course because I love that game so much. I played hours and hours of it. It's simple, it's fun. It's one of those games that is easy to pick up, a little trickier to master. And I think that is just the essence of a lot of these older games, is that anyone can try it. Anyone can fool around with these games, have fun with them, and then you can actually put in the time to get really good at it. But like you said, Dustin, the art style for me is one of the biggest one of the biggest draws for this. A big reason why I'm sticking with Octopath Traveler 2 is because it is just gorgeous. I mean, this is one of the prettiest pixel art games I've ever seen. The environments, the characters, all of it is just so beautiful that I don't want to leave the world without having seen all of it, because every time I go to a new area of the map, it's just even better than the last one. So I feel like that's just a big factor, is the art and how well it holds up, because I don't know, man, going back to some of those like N64 games and even my beloved GameCube, even some of those look a little rough these days. But I would say I would totally go back to which Sonic game is it, like Sonic Adventure DX, that has like the Halloween world in it. It has like the Halloween rap. That I'd play again in a heartbeat. I probably looks like shit, but that I would go and play like right away.
Sonic
That was
looks
an absolute
awful,
favorite.
Yeah, I would still play the hell out of it.
It looks good in my mind, and I don't want to go look at it because I'm sure it looks like awful, but it still looks good in my head. That's what I want to hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes those games, it's just better to keep it in your head, because when you go back, it's not quite the same. But I don't know who to go to next year, because I feel like you guys are both OGs when it comes to these consoles. I mean, Micah and I have played them before, but I unfortunately was super late to the Super Nintendo. I think my first experience with Super Nintendo was on an emulator on my computer as a kid, because I just never had one. We had a Sega. And man, in hindsight, it's just a complete travesty. I mean, parents practically committed, child abuse with having the Sega Genesis instead of the Super Nintendo. But I don't know. I guess we'll take it to Eugene. What is it about these consoles that we still love them so much?
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It really just drills down to gameplay. Developers back then were just mostly focused on how the game plays, and that's where the resources were all going to. It's why Chrono Trigger is still considered like the best Japanese RPG of all time, because that was kind of like the peak of Square Enix's powers, where they already had Final Fantasy under their belt, and they're already veterans of the form, of the medium, and that's why pixel art is so timeless, because it's so unique to our medium. There's no other art that looks like pixel art. Music doesn't have that. Movies don't have that. When they do that, they're all evocative of video games. That's what it is, So that's what makes the medium so unique. But I like that Micah brought up the N64, because that was also immediately where my mind went in terms of timelessness and how not timeless the N64 is. Because I never owned a Nintendo 64, but I definitely rented it, and I knew Ocarina of Time was a big enough game that I needed to rent it from Blockbuster and play hell out of it. But because of that, my time with the N64 was only limited. So I really wanted to play the new Castlevania game in 1989 for Nintendo 64.
That didn't go
well. What you want to talk about a game that looks so awful, you don't know what to do. Like, I don't look up any video of Castlevania 64 on YouTube.
It's tough.
And like, I think there's some classic reviews talking about how like the game is so confusing. It's like Simon Belmont's quest level of confusing in a 3D environment that's super muddy. This is before anyone ever figured out Z targeting. So the combat is just like you're just kind of walking around and trying to whip things. The 3D was basically like, everyone having new legs again and trying to figure that out. And most people didn't. Super Mario 64 had it right out the gate, and that's why that game is still great to play. But before that, and that's why Ocarina of Time is still great to play, because it modernized the language of 3D digital space, But before that, man, it was rough. It was rough. And Castlevania 64 is probably, for me, emblematic of that kind of like awkward period of trying to relearn how to make video games again, basically,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dagan, take it away. I know you have extensive knowledge of both of these consoles. You've written about games.
Yeah.
You're a published author on some of these games.
I've been around a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my old man hat on right now. I mean, but it's true. It's a great question, because what is the staying power, though? Right? And I think you guys touched on it. I mean, we didn't have today's graphical sophistication. We didn't have the audio fidelity. There was very limited tools and a limited output for final presentation. So when you were designing games back then, and I would extend this from 8-bit even back to Atari 2600 and early arcade, it really was about the idea. You know, the emphasis was on the whimsy, the fun, the charm, and the gameplay, and just interacting with it. You couldn't rely on the graphics. You couldn't rely on the audio or the visual. So it really was about the fun and just having a great time with these things. And then, of course, it evolved with every console generation as the arcade also, you know, evolved. But it's funny, too, because I think about it from a context of there's a retro appeal now, but also going back, you know, that's what we had at the time. So a lot of it is just based on, you know, perspective and what you're comparing it to directly, right? But what keeps these things now is that the fun, the graphics can evolve. The audio capability can evolve, the chipset, the hardware, but the fun is something that's consistent. Fun is fun. And that's what makes these games age so well, is that they're just as fun to play now as they were back then. And, you know, also, you know, a lot of it for us, it was our introduction to video games. So it's where our love for video games, our love affair with video games started. That's where it blossomed from. So for us, it's not only nostalgia, but it kind of set the template for what appealed to us and whether we were going to stay in gaming. And it comes full circle to what you guys said earlier too, about something like Tears of the Kingdom now, where there's definitely something going on. There's a buzz. There's just something in the offing. There's something in the atmosphere where people don't want to miss out around the water cooler talk. There's definitely something going on with that now, where it's something similar to an HBO series like Sopranos or Game of Thrones or a film, a must-see film. There's something people don't want to miss out on the conversation. It is that FOMO and or people returning to gaming after have left it by the, you know, maybe people left gaming by the wayside 10 years ago and they're like, this is a nice point of entry back in. Let me see what all the fuss is about. So there's that going on too. But that's where it started for us. You know, for me, it started in the 80s with the Atari 2600 and then quickly sprang into into Nintendo coming into the country with the 8-bit NES. But it's interesting how the habits haven't changed and we're still addicted to having fun. And it still kind of plays into Tears of the Kingdom, ironically, because it's not about, you know, there's a lot of games out there with, you know, graphic sophistication that Tears of the Kingdom definitely falls way short of, but people are talking about Tears of the Kingdom. So it is sort of that same dynamic of just centering something around fun. And a lot of that's lost. It reminds me of visual effects in film, right? CGI, mocap, the sophistication of creating things that look so real. But why do we still go back and watch Ray Harryhausen stop motion movies and King Kong and, you know, Clash of the Titans? Because that handmade, thoughtful effort with limited technology, I think there's something very appealing to our humanity in that there was, you know, that's what they had at the time and they did the best they could with it. And there's a great charm in that. I think there's something that appeals to us about that.
Yeah. I've always thought about the type of creativity that can come through limitations. I'm always intrigued by that. And I feel like, man, it's one of those things where I think a lot of stuff was figured out before Super Nintendo, but there was just this, I don't know, balls to the wall approach with pixel art. That's almost, I don't know. When I see some of the pixel art from Super Nintendo games, I think, wow, it feels like it's showing off now thinking about it. Like, and that's something we always talk about on Sacred Symbols, is just that it should not be understated that great pixel art is not easy. Pixel art is not easy at all. In fact, some people argue that pixel art can be harder than 3D art in some ways. So yeah, there's something timeless about it that I just, I'm so happy it's still around. And like we were talking about, to see Nintendo continue to celebrate it with these, keeping it alive, even though it's not quite in a way, you know, that we would like with a subscription service. But either way, great question. from Jeremy, and a conversation that I think will continue throughout the life of the show. I have 2 more questions, but I think I'm just going to do one because I think that this second one, so I'll just give it away now. The second one is about what we want from the next Switch or the next thing. And I think that we should save that and have a big blowout topic about that, because that I can't contain that for just a question. So sorry, Ian. But this question was asked by I think I saw it at least 3 or 4 times in the question thread, and so I knew we needed to address it.
Okay.
This comes from DB Cooper. It says, loving the new show, y'all. What are your thoughts on a trophy or achievement program for Nintendo? Do you want one? Do you think they should or would ever implement one? Just curious what you guys think. Can't wait to see how the new show grows. We'll continue supporting. Thanks. Gene, I'm going to throw this right to you because I see some support on the video here. So you're saying yes, achievements, trophies on Switch, coins, stars, whatever?
I'm not like any of you guys where I really don't care about getting the platinum trophy or getting, Colin really cares about trophies, which is interesting. I'm not
That's
like
one way
that.
to put it.
Yeah. I'm not like that.
Yeah.
But
I think he would put it that way too. So to be fair.
Yeah. But I would do that for games that I really, really love, like Spider-Man Insomniac games. I got the platinum for Vampire Survivors. I'm dedicated to making sure that I get a perfect achievement score on the Xbox for that one. And so I love so many Nintendo games, and it would just make perfect sense. Like, I feel like I probably would have completed Super Mario Odyssey a little bit more if I got a little bit more motivation besides, like, the little fireworks display that you get at the end for collecting every single moon in Super Mario Odyssey. Or I would be motivated to get more Korok seeds if there was an achievement to get at least 450 Korok seeds. I would do that again because I did.
Giant poop is not enough for you.
It's not.
I don't know if that's the case in Tears of the Kingdom. That was well known from Breath of the Wild.
Do you want the spoiler?
No.
What do you get for Korok seeds?
No.
In Tears of the Kingdom, you don't. Okay.
No, because then I'll have to cut it out or I'll bleep it or something. Yeah, we'll save that. I might want to know after. So yeah. I'll ask you that. I have some other questions for you too.
But yeah, I'm playing the hell out of Tears of the Kingdom, and it's like, there's definitely intrinsic rewards for this. And actually, Matthew Matosis, the YouTube critic, who's been around for such a long time, he just came out with a surprise video after like a year or so of silence, so talking about the philosophy of intrinsic and extrinsic rewards in video games. And achievements are extrinsic motivation, and I feel like, I would probably be playing Tears of the Kingdom quite differently if there was an achievement to focus. And again, I love so many Nintendo games. I think I would want to get. I think I would want to go for those perfect achievements or platinum trophies or whatever Nintendo cute name wants to call it. And I'm surprised because so many Nintendo games these days, we were just talking about the design philosophy of having all these little puzzles and everything like that. All their games these days kind of like lend towards having achievements, and a lot of these games would have like little internal markers for these achievements. If you get a certain amount of moons, you unlock the second to last level in Super Mario Odyssey, and you achieve 500 moons, and you unlock the real last level, and you don't really get anything out of it other than like the bragging rights. So why not add a little bit more bragging rights to it? That's my take on it.
Yeah, it's a good.
Yeah. Now, Micah and Dagan. Dagan, you are the brother of one of the most infamous or famous, depending on how you famous or infamous. Trophy hunters probably in the world. Micah, you're going to be married to. You live with one of them.
To this guy,
and so we've seen a lot of angles on this type of thing. And so, Micah, I'll throw it to you first as someone who's directly. This I would say this directs your life, or at least you observe it on a daily basis. How do you feel about this on Switch?
This is a trophy hunter in his natural habitat. Still sleeping at 1:30 p.m.
My feelings on this are complicated because I once was a an achievement hunter.
Mm.
I used to go on, True Achievements, and I would find groups of people to play, Max Payne 3 online with the boost achievements and like Gears 2 online to boost achievements. I was that person who was up until like 3 a.m. playing with, people in other countries, just trying to get some achievements done. I was that guy, and I don't ever want to do that again.
Yeah.
It was, I did that for several years where I was like really focused on achievements. And I actively buy games on Switch to avoid trophies and achievements. Like I bought Persona 5 Strikers on Switch knowing that it would run better on PlayStation, but I did not want to deal with trophies. I can't stand playing something like, Persona 4 and it's like, oh, I put, 80 hours into this game and I got 4% of the trophies. I hate it. And I'm not going to ruin the game, though, by following a guide. And I also don't want to play games like 3 times to get the trophies. I don't have that in me anymore. Like, I did some really crazy things for achievements back in the day. I got like the full 1,000 on Viva Pinata. I got the full 1,000 on Assassin's Creed 1, okay? I did some really crazy stuff back then, and I just don't have it anymore.
Assassin's Creed 1 is crazy to get a perfect achievement for. That's crazy.
Yeah, and you know what? It's on an account I don't have access to anymore, so maybe that's part of why I'm so angry.
Damn.
That game had an achievement to get like all the flags in the whole game.
So stupid.
And I missed one, and I had to go back all the way through like the guide to find like the one that I missed. It was horrible, and I did it though. So I just don't have it in me anymore. I don't have that dog in me anymore, as they say on the NFL podcast I watch a lot. So it's just not for me at this time. I actively buy games for Switch because I can just chill out and play them. Colin and I could have shared our copy of Octopath Traveler 2 on PlayStation, but I just bought my own on Switch because I didn't want trophies on that. I was like, no thanks, man. That's the last game I want to have trophies on, is I'm going to put, all these hours into this, and it's going to be like, oh, you got 5% of the trophies, big whoop.
Yeah.
So I just can't do it at this point in my life. If they did implement it, it wouldn't steer me away from Switch by any means, but I would be disappointed. It's definitely not something I want. I think the only potential want would be it would definitely motivate someone like Colin to actually play more Switch games, of which like he's actively opposed to playing some of these because, as he says, there's no record of what you've done. There's no proof of how far you got type thing. I get it. So maybe the one positive would be that it would motivate some people to play more Switch games. But for me personally, it's a never, I would never want them to implement it. It's not on my list of wants like at all.
Dagan, we have a split panel currently on this.
I hope I get help with it. I mean, I want it just so Colin not only has to play Tears of the Kingdom, but now he would have to go back and play Breath of the Wild. That's pretty hilarious. That's reason enough to want this. And I mean, my overarching philosophy is why not? Why not build that space for the Nintendo community? It seems kind of wrong to deprive Nintendoers of that if they want it. For myself, it's not really important. Completing a game is usually enough. If I'm really avid about a game, then I do like wringing a little more quality, a little more replay value out of a title, especially at this new price point. I think there's nothing but positive from that. But the downside for me of having trophies on Switch would be it just not playing well with my OCD. Because if I had to play a specific game, whether I wanted to or we were covering something for one of the shows, I think I would adopt a very completionist mentality around that, which I already struggle with finding the time to play what I need to play. It's allocating the time, professional animator, the whole thing. It's already a time drain, and I am a little bit of that person. I do have a little bit of that OCD where I would feel like there was something unfulfilled not having tried to go for 100%, with a game, which that doesn't work well with my personality. But I do like the idea of having it just so it's available in the Nintendo ecosystem. And I do wonder how it would work with Kyle. Would he dig his heels in and just be like, you're not getting me with that nice try type of thing? Or would he throw his hands up and be like, okay, you finally got me. Now I have to do this. But I mean, from a consumer standpoint, the value in that would make it seems like it would be at low cost for Nintendo too. I don't know why they wouldn't just go in for something, or maybe put their own spin on the trophy system. Maybe somehow make it skew to their brand, or put their own, kind of evoke their own voice with it. Do something a little, I don't know what that would be exactly. I have to workshop that, but put their own twist on it, their own Nintendo twist.
That's what I was thinking too, is I think that if they ever did it, it would have to be in a way that is through and through Nintendo. And I gotta say, I lean more towards Micah's thinking on this, but in a different way. I've managed to block out the thought of trophies in my life 95% of the time. Every once in a while, there is a game that I think about trophies, and it can enrich the experience. But Sacred Symbols listeners know, I just had one too many experiences where going for trophies ruined it for me and left me with a bad taste in my mouth after the game was over, or after I got the platinum, because I just didn't. I was like, particularly, I always think of Final Fantasy 15 and how now when I think back to it, I have mostly forgotten the parts that I hated, like all the fishing and doing some of the side quests that sucked and stuff. Like that game, I gave that game a hard time when it came out, but I think it's because I was trying to get the platinum, really. And so I wonder if Nintendo looks at this and it's just counterintuitive to their philosophy behind why people are playing games. I think they want you to play the game because it feels fun to play. And it sounds like I'm just stating the obvious, but I think that you run a risk with trophies if not done correctly. Like, let's say, and that's why I said it needs to be done in a Nintendo way, is that if you think about how trophies are all over the place, or achievements, and there can be good ones and there can be bad ones, there's no quality assurance behind it. How many times people stop having fun in order to get the check mark? That happens all the time. And I think that Nintendo thinks about that. And we're like, we don't want people doing that on our device. We want people going and exploring in Zelda or doing more Mario levels or something like that. And playing it because they find it fun, not because they want a little icon showing up. And like I said, I also like the little icon every once in a while. I did it for Elden Ring last year, and I may do it again for another game someday. I do enjoy that. Yeah. So I think that they would, I don't know. And that's just me totally spitballing about thinking about what Nintendo's motivation is with things, because it's weird because I think that sometimes people I'm not saying they're always right, but think about their approach to online for a long time, is that I just think that they were viewing things in a different way. I think they ended up being ultimately wrong about the online, but I can see why they thought they did. They're thinking about the holistic experience. And that's one of the things I really respect about them. And it goes as far as their advertising. We talked about that ad they put out for Tears of the Kingdom. And that ad, it wasn't really about the game, the guy on the bus playing the game. Oh, yeah. Right? Yep. That one. It wasn't about the game. It was about the experience you have playing it. And that's something I've always admired about them, is that this idea that it's like, yeah, it's about the game and it's about the mechanics and the visuals and the story, but how does it make you feel when you play it? In the end, does it bring joy? Does it make you happy? Does it feel fun? And so, I don't know, maybe I've gotten too meta with this conversation about trophies, but I just feel deep down that that's part of the conversation where they're talking about it. They're like,
I think you're right.
We invite bad vibes, the potential for some bad situations.
I think that's why they made the reward for collecting all 900 Koroks in Breath of the Wild a piece of golden poop, because they want you to know that this is not something you should go for. Like, don't spend your time doing this. Like, it's a waste of time. Do the Korok seeds because you get more item management and they're fun to do. but don't obsessively chase after all of them. Don't be like Gerard, the completionist, who had a horrible time with Breath of the Wild, and he got all 900 Korok seeds. I got 450 of them. That shit sucked. But the reason why I got 450 of them was because that is a max. It's around that. I'm kind of guesstimating, but it's around that mark where that is the amount of Korok seeds you need to maximize every single inventory slot in Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I have maximum weapon slots, shields, and bows and arrows, and I don't need to collect any more Korok seeds ever again because it won't benefit me at all. Because all I know at the end of that long road is a piece of golden poop.
It's a comment, in fact, on the trophy system. Did Gerard really do that? Wow.
He did. He did. I mean, he completed Hyrule Warriors, which is an insane game to finish, because that game takes thousands of hours to complete.
He makes me so tired.
Yeah, I cannot believe he even did that, because I tried to do that, and once I realized what it would take to get everything in Hyrule Warriors, I was like, I'm out. I can't do this.
In fact, you would think Nintendo would develop a real tactile, tangible reward system beyond just bragging rights if they adopted their own quote unquote trophy system. But it does seem counter to their philosophy, and they really don't need it. They're putting the quality and the thoughtfulness and sort of their brand representation above bottom line in a way, or at least doing it in that typical Nintendo classy way. It's the opposite of the artificial scarcity thing. It's like they could definitely do it. They could definitely make millions more dollars instituting some kind of reward system where maybe there's actual product rewards or free game downloads and stuff, but they really don't. And I'm sure they thought of this way before we did, but they don't need to.
Yeah. So we'll see if they ever do something. I don't think it's impossible. I think that eventually, maybe, but I also wouldn't count on it. I think there's also a world where they never do it. And so, I don't know. I think it could bring some value, but I'm okay with the status quo right now. There's other platforms that have that kind of meta game if you want that, but I can also understand wanting it on Nintendo. So that's it, guys. That's all I have for the show. Let me tell you guys, I know I'm not supposed to say this, I'm the host, but I had a great time. I feel like this was another success
for
fun. Episode 2. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you to the audience for your great write-ins. There's 2 things I want to say before I hand it off to the rest of the crew to say goodbye, and that is, number 1, I should have said this at the top, but I forgot. If any big Nintendo news happens, we're recording this a little early. We're recording this on Thursday, May 25th, and that's so we can take Memorial Day off, because we normally would record on Mondays, and today was the day where it worked out for everybody. So sorry if there's any big Nintendo news. We'll figure something out or put in the next episode, something like that. So that being said, the other thing was, I had the game last week of the anime games Real or Fake. And just because we didn't do a second game, like I said, the show can change as we see fit. If you're on Patreon and you write in a question and you want to create your own game like that, I would love to see it. I put it in the notes, or in the thread, but I don't know if sometimes people don't read those, and that's fine because they're usually all the same. So there's not much that changes. But if you want to create your own game, and I mean really create it, don't say, hey, here's an idea for a game, go for it. You could do that, and then maybe I'll do it, maybe not. But I'd love to have a full feature complete game if you want. Take a little bit of the load off of me, or maybe I'll make one too. I don't know. We'll see. But I want to give that option to the patrons out there. If you have an idea for a Nintendo themed game for us to play, we would love that. So signing off, I'll go again from top to bottom on my Zencaster screen. Micah, any final thoughts?
Oh, this was a lot of fun. As always, I want to wish a happy birthday to George Washington Carver, inventor of the peanut. Okay. Very important day. And he doesn't get enough recognition, I feel, in our modern society. We always got to remember where we came from when it comes to peanuts and peanut-related products.
Absolutely. I mean, where would we be without, peanut butter in particular? Peanut butter cups, my favorite.
So many things. Actually, though, Colin and I were talking about him. Allegedly, he had all these recipes like with peanuts in them, and they didn't take off. And it was like at a certain point, like, George, you really struck gold with peanut butter. You got to stop.
Yeah.
Like, stop putting peanuts in everything, because he invented all these recipes, and that's not the thing that he was famous for.
Some say he's a one-hit wonder, you know.
He might have been. He really might have been.
Dagan, closing comments.
The real life Korok seeds, peanuts, right? With direct relationship there. I mean, he was the first person to be allergic to peanuts. Did you know that? Totally making that up. Totally making that up. Totally just made that up.
That would have been something. Imagine the fate on that.
This is fun, man. The 2 episodes in, highest marks for fun. I mean, this show just feels exactly like Constellation for me. Just fun, free-flowing, passionate conversation with a great crew of people. I really enjoyed it. And thank you. And listen, I don't want to shill for Nintendo, but one thing I recognized when I was shopping for games a couple of days ago, there's a lot of good deals on the eShop. Not very Nintendo-esque. Not just indie games. I know I'm scouring for indie games. I want to talk about a lot. We'll talk about more on the next show, but some actual big AAA titles on sale right now on the eShop. So I know we're all playing Tears of the Kingdom. We don't have enough time in the day, but if you were of the mind to buy some games, now seems like a good time.
Yeah. Check out those deals. Gene, anything to say before we go?
I'm surprised I remembered the name George Washington Carver. I don't know why I knew about him, but I remember reading about him as a kid and being fascinated with his story. I forgot all about it, so you kind of unlocked a core memory there, Micah. That has nothing to do with Nintendo. I'm just still on that. I'm just like, why did I know so much about him? And what does Micah know about him too?
Every third grader in America has to learn about George Washington Carver.
I guess so. Maybe it's like Catcher in the Rye, where we all had to read about it for a while. You know?
Yeah.
But another great episode. Duck Dynasty. We are going to be surpassing you on the regular.
Stand watch role. And stand down.
Yeah,
Duck
stand
Dynasty.
down. Critical Role. You might have to stand down too, but we can't beat the top leisure podcast, which is, I don't know what the name was. But
yeah, there's some. It's so annoying. Why can't we just have a video game category? iTunes.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like video game podcasts. Maybe I'm just blindsided from the fact that I'm in a bubble, but I'm like, we created this space. That's definitely not true. It feels that way though. So yeah, Duck Dynasty, stand down, stand watch, because we're coming for you again with this episode too. We'll see what happens, but. So again, to the audience, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all your support. It means so much to us. And yeah, we'll be back in another 2 weeks, a fortnight, whatever, pretty soon. So thank you again. We'll see you guys later. Bye. Punching Up, a Nintendo podcast, is a product of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand, LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is written and produced by me, Dustin Furman. My co-hosts are Gene Park, Dagan Moriarty, and Micah Watson. The show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. Punching Up, along with the rest of Last Stand Media shows, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your kind contributions and generosity to our independent endeavor. Thank you.